It's a frigid night here at Canamella Field on the campus of New London High School, and the oldest high school football rivalry in the country has the stage set. The New London High School Whalers play host to the NFA Wildcats in the 157th time these two schools have played. They've played in the rain, they've played in the snow, they are playing in the cold, but for the first time, they're playing under the lights. And we're going to talk about why, as I am joined here on game day, Casey O'Neill, along with the coach, former athletic director, former head football official, and former and current historian of the game, Jim O'Neill, which means the O'Neill boys are riding in the saddle tonight. Talk a little bit about this game being moved from tomorrow till tonight.
Well, it's always the most difficult decision any athletic director or administrator has to make. They do it for a variety of reasons, but I will tell you this is done because the kids' welfare was kept in mind, and that's always an encouraging thing. Nobody likes to play in bitter cold weather. It's not good to play in bitter cold weather, so we're going to see a game under the lights in rather benign temperatures, and we're looking forward to kickoff.
Absolutely. NFA will be in the visiting white and red, of course, New London in the home green and gold, and they'll receive the opening kickoff, and deep spiraling kick comes down inside the 10, and the Whalers will have the first possession. And Richard Henry is wrapped up pretty quickly, so the Whalers will have their first possession at the 20-yard line. Cold night tonight, and the first question starting the game will be who will be under center, or at least taking the snaps on this first possession for the Whalers. Of course, all eyes on number 7, Owen George, he of the broken arm. And it looks like, to start with, we're going to see Jacob Commander out there, but we do expect to see George play tonight.
We talked to Coach John Burns last night, and he told us that there were a variety of packages that the Whalers had. Owen George was going to be included in some of them. I was a little concerned because he said he wasn't going to punt, and that means the injury may be more of a concern than they're actually letting on.
Well, the dynamic Jacob Commander will certainly have his work cut out for him tonight, and on first down he operates from the shotgun, and Commander keeps straight up the middle, that low center of gravity, and he'll gain about 3 on first down.
With Commander in the lineup, the Whalers run sort of, it looks like read option, but really it's just the old single wing, with the Commander being the tailback. Puts him in a good position to read blocks, so we'll see how that works out for them.
Yeah, Commander is one of the more interesting players. He's really become sort of a fixture in the ECC football, 4-year starter. He's played all over the place. And now this year taking on with George Hurt the role of quarterback, something very difficult, but he has handled it very well. So 2nd and 7, straight snap. Commander's going to keep it himself, breaks a tackle, and he bounces outside. Commander has a first down for the Whalers up towards the 35-yard line, a little bit low center of gravity.
Tough run by Jacob Commander, but he's been doing that for 3 years here now, and so it's nothing that we shouldn't expect. This is maybe, for example, a pretty new wrinkle for the Whalers. They might call it the Wildcat, but it's that would be a Norwich thing.
They say you can't call it that tonight, no matter what. Well, we talk a lot with our coaches beforehand, and they've all been very concerned because it's hard to simulate this in their practices. The Commander behind center, it's very difficult for them to get a fixture. It's pretty direct and simple, but very, very effective. So first down, Commander this time hands off straight up to the middle, spinning. That looks like Marcus, and not much there. Gain of about a yard on first down.
One of the things that Johnny Burns stressed was that in the last 2 games, the Whalers had gotten off to particularly slow starts and found themselves behind the 8 ball before they could really get into the game. This first drive is important for no other reason, and it's simply get a couple of first downs. But if get them into the game early is what Johnny wanted to do.
Yeah, everyone says, I think he said it, the idea that there's 4 quarters, and everyone always focuses on the 4th one, but the first one's just as important. And for them, absolutely, they have gotten off to some very slow starts. They've played a very tough out-of-conference schedule, and last week Middletown really took advantage of that slow start and had them behind early. Tonight, on this first possession, Whalers have 2nd and 9. Straight snap. Commander's going to keep. Off left tackle. Bounces to the outside. Breaks another tackle and has another first down. And there you really see the difficulty in tackling Commander. Even when you go low, he's very, very difficult to bring down.
Well, the interesting thing with him taking a direct snap case is that he ends up with an extra blocker. Whereas when he's taking the ball from Owen George out of a tee set, he doesn't have that advantage. So this is maybe an effective weapon for him. They've made a couple of first downs now and are almost into Norwich territory. It's going to be a big deal for the Whalers to get started.
See, it's just like 1989 WNLC all over
You were
again.
never that quick when
I'm cold.
You should have seen the movie just put on the door, folks. I mean,
that door had no chance. It wanted to stay open,
but you just weren't going to let it.
I got there.
I think the ghost of Salamonte opened that door.
There's our first flag of the day. We're going to get a delay of game against the Whalers. And, you know, you have the interesting position of having been a lead official in addition to a coach. How frustrating is it from a coaching standpoint? You just get a couple of first downs and you come up and you get a delay of game.
That is the kind of mistake that Johnny Burns told us that they had been making and that he was trying to avoid tonight. And 1st and 15 for a predominantly running attack is not the way you want to go.
Commander, low snap, hands the ball off to Marcus, and he flies in, and ball is loose on the turf. See the beanbag come down, but the Whalers fall on it, so it'll be second. And they're going in the wrong direction, and this is the kind of thing that we've seen from this New London team, doing a lot of good things and then back-to-back plays, and now they are really in a tough spot, especially without Owen George.
I think for the Whalers particularly in the first 2 quarters, ball security is going to be a key issue. It's cold, but not unbearably cold, but cold enough so that you get that kind of slick ball, and protection is key at this point here. We have not yet to see the ball in the air, by the way.
And you might not, even with 2nd and 20. They might be a little hesitant right now to put the ball up in the air at this point, but just like that, on cue, Commander going to throw, instead steps up, and he's going to be, I guess we could call it a sack. It's right at the line of scrimmage, but either way, it'll be no gain. It'll be 3rd and 20 here coming up for the Whalers.
Well, that certainly bodes well as a passing down for them. But I really do think Johnny Burns would be happy to get a 4th down here and get the ball, the Wildcats pinned as deeply as he possibly can and let his defense go to work. Just really trying to stay out of the kind of trouble they've had the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, you don't want to try to do too much, and certainly with playmakers on the field. But the one downside of this offense with Commander not throwing the ball is that you don't get a chance to see the dynamic Zeke Burgess. And here we got a toss right. Marcus breaks a tackle, but not much there. It'll be 4th down, and like you said, the Whalers will be content to punt this one away and play defense. That's the one downside. When the Whalers' offense was so dynamic with Owen George throwing it, Burgess, a college wide receiver, and Commander, but a little bit more one-dimensional with Commander back there, even though he can throw the ball. So something a little different. NFA adjusted to it, and now they'll have an opportunity to have the ball. Something to look at. The Whalers have had multiple punts blocked in the last 2 weeks. Really struggled in the punting game.
That was a staple of Whaler defense for years. The wind grabs that one.
Yeah, Wildcats came after it, and Commander, who does everything, might as well stay in and punt it as well. And that ball goes out of bounds just past midfield. Killingly last week, 10 days ago, really showed that if you can keep NFA to the middle of the field, they struggle. They love to spread it wide. They love to use their speed on the edge, and they like to get their receivers into the middle of the field by stretching it with the run. The Whalers might be the quickest, fastest team NFA has seen. We'll find out here in the early going how that speed matches up. So Parker will take over in the shotgun for NFA on 1st down right from midfield. In motion, Mulkentine, and Parker will throw. Has time and zips it over the middle looking for Pomeroy, and that's incomplete.
They called it incomplete, yeah. The Wildcats, by the way, going with the wind at their back in this first quarter, as we saw with Commander's punt. The wind, fairly strong. Not like it's going to be tomorrow, apparently, but still going to be a factor here early in the game. And I think the Wildcats will want to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's never good when the first word to describe the weather is Arctic. Arctic is never a good word to start with. Parker throws it out, and on the knees making the catch is Pierre-Louis. He's actually Pierre-Louis, but I can't help myself every time I say it. I want to say Pierre-Louis, but that'll bring up a manageable 3rd down, 3rd and 6. But the wind is the interesting thing that people don't talk about. Everyone focuses on the temperature. I think the wind affects more, especially for a team like NFA who really wants to throw the ball. They got to take advantage of the wind being at their back right now.
And the Whalers commit another one of those things that Johnny Burns said: we can't make silly mistakes. A neutral zone violation will give the Wildcats a 5-yard and turn a very difficult 3rd and 7 into a much more manageable 3rd and 2.
And so we've seen the 2 penalties so far. One's a drive killer in one direction, and the other one's a drive sustainer. It's very difficult, like you said, to operate in such a situation. So here on 3rd down, handoff goes to Preston, and Preston still fighting for yards.
He'll get the first down.
And he tumbles over the 35, and that'll be enough. So they'll move chains.
One of the things I thought that went unmentioned about this rivalry would be how the two front sevens really faced each other, how the Norwich offensive line could protect Parker, and what kind of pressure the Whalers could put on him. So far, he gets rid of the ball so quickly, it's difficult to pressure him.
Yeah, they like to come out, as you saw there. They like to get the ball out of his hands quickly and really set up later in the game. You're going to see Mulkentine run deep seam routes. You're going to see Pomeroy really operate. Great slot receiver, Pomeroy. But they soften up, much like the Patriots. They use the pass, the short pass, as almost a running play. Parker will keep it on his own on 2nd down. Good yardage, and then he'll get up almost to the 25-yard line. So it'll be 3rd and short for NFA.
Right now, Norwich getting the bigger push off the ball, and Whalers need to be a little more stout here, especially now that they're near the red zone.
They're going to give them the first down, so 1st and 10 at the 25-yard line. And, right now, NFA not doing anything particularly tricky. They're just going straight at him. Straight up the middle is Preston, and that's a big hole for Preston, and he'll gain good yardage on 1st down. That's just offensive line work right there.
That is just offensive line work. Jonathan Pierre with a great fold block that opened up the hole.
Now you got Damian Blue in the backfield. He'll replace Preston on 2nd and short. Parker's going to throw. Plenty of time. Hits Mulkentine on a crossing route, and Mulkentine will have a 1st down. Looks like he might be inside the 10, and if so, it'll be 1st and goal NFA.
Nice call against the Whalers. Whalers were in zone, and Mulkentine, just with the simple crossing route, came free from the opposite side of the field. Parker hit him in stride.
So 1st and goal NFA, ball right at the 10. Little jet sweep to Pomeroy. Pomeroy trips and falls down, and helping him get down there is Jalen Commander, one of the other Commander brothers. And it'll be a loss on the play.
And a good play. I mean, you get in the red zone and you take a 5-yard, 6-yard loss. That's just a big play.
Yeah, and that's the other part tonight. The kicking game is affected by the weather conditions as well. Hard ball, windy conditions. NFA has a good kicking game, but you don't want to go backwards. So 2nd down and goal. Ball's marked at the 14, and you see there 4 wide receivers in the package right now for NFA with Parker from that shotgun.
Which generally means nice throw.
Pomeroy right over the middle. He's so good, I said, from the slot. Pomeroy really is very, very good at finding the seam, finding the hole. He did that time, and that's going to put them right on the doorstep here. It'll be 3rd down and goal to goal from about the 2-yard line.
Nice route, nice throw. Just a simple slant, and Parker right on the money to Pomeroy.
And he just sat down right in that zone. This is where they like to use Preston. And indeed, they give Preston the ball straight up the middle, reaching for the end zone.
And the touchdown is called.
Touchdown Wildcats, 3:37 in the first. We've got our first points of the ball game. NFA on top, 6-0.
Well, that was impressive. They took the ball at midfield and literally just marched down the field. It overcame a bad play where they ended up with a long down and distance and still got into the end zone. Parker on target all the way.
So 3:37 remaining in the first period, 6-0. On top are the Wildcats, and Shane Evans will come in to kick the extra point, and he bangs it through, no problem there, and it'll be 7-0 Wildcats, and very impressive going up and down the field. But part of it, the front seven, not only were the holes there, Parker had all the time in the world to throw the football.
Well, 2 reasons. One, the Whalers aren't getting the kind of pressure they're going to need, but it's been very difficult because he throws the ball very quickly. Everything in the Wildcat game is predicated on a quick release. There wasn't a deep route thrown during that whole march, so it's going to be difficult to muster pressure, which means they're going to have to press the receivers if they want to, not give Parker the opportunity for what essentially is just pitch and catch.
Yeah, Jason Bakulis' offense has a lot of pro facets to it. The routes they run are the routes you see on Sunday. You saw Pomeroy has, in the pros they call it a drag route, it's instead of the crossing route, but that just kind of slow drag into the zone and that sit down and the use of the quick bubble screens and things to sort of mirror a running game. So a lot of the stuff, and I think there's an advancement in coaching. Years ago, high school coaches sometimes emulated college coaches. Now you see the pros having a huge influence even at the high school level.
Have an influence at every level. Try to find straight pro quarterbacks in the college ranks. Very difficult to do these days. Spread offenses have just really become dominant.
Yep, sixth grade teams throw the ball from the spread and they shoot 3-pointers. So I mean, it's like you're right. The pro game is everywhere. That ball takes a bounce off of Marcus. He's going to pick it up at the 15-yard line and head out past the 30-yard line. So nice job. Jerry Marcus will set the Whalers up at their own 30.
You're absolutely right about one thing, O'Case. The game has become more sophisticated. Football is way more sophisticated than it was certainly during, I won't even count during my time. Ball was stuffed with feathers when I played. But it is more, I mean, if you had a back shoulder throw, 20 years ago, it meant either the quarterback threw a lousy ball or the receiver ran the wrong route. Not anymore. These offenses are far more sophisticated, and that was a pretty sophisticated look that Norwich put on the Whalers in the first drive.
Well, speaking of sophisticated, Owen George in the game, and he's going to throw the ball on first down, and he hits Burgess, and the ball comes loose, and they're going to say it's a catch and a fumble, and the Whalers will recover it. Falling on it is Marcus, but right off the bat, you see, Richard Henry fell on it that time, and there it is. There's right away they want to get the ball into Zeke Burgess's hands. He's the dynamic playmaker. And George throwing his first pass in a month.
Oh well, he suffered the broken left arm, and that has kind of held him back for a while. This is his first action in 3 weeks now, right?
Yes, it's since the Hill House game, which is the game in which he was injured. So good to see him back out there. It'll be 2nd and 10 from the shotgun now. Low snap, ball's on the turf. Picked up straight up the middle by Commander. And talk about making something out of nothing. Instead of just falling on it, Commander actually got a couple yards.
This is exactly, though, what John Burns talked about last night. Just not being clean in the first quarter and a half of the game. Just too many mishaps early on. The teams are pretty evenly matched otherwise, but it'll be a matter of if the Whalers can reduce their mistakes.
Yeah, the efficiency with which and that NFA went down the field, the execution that the NFA showed. New London obviously a full step behind at this point. 3rd and 10. George deep down the sideline looking for Pratt's. Incomplete, but they're going to be a flag. Yeah. Actually, more than one. It's really a penalty. It wasn't just a penalty. It was a double penalty because there's 2 flags. Now, as an official,
yes.
How many? This is a genuinely good question.
Yeah.
Why 2 flags?
Well, because 2 guys were watching that play. If you saw more than that, you start wondering because that means somebody's not watching where he's supposed to. But 2 flags, you got a lot of officials out there, more stripes than I see at one of our meetings. There's 6 guys. I think they have a 6-man crew here tonight. So that you're going to have in cases like that where 2 officials are clocking the same play, especially with one receiver, which it was one receiver route.
Because when I've seen multiple flags, I've always wondered, so you do have overlapping, officials are watching overlapping things. Now, would there have been a time where one of those officials might have, if there was a second route runner?
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So because there was just a one-on-one,
that's right,
multiple people. So it'll be first down Whalers. That's their most effective play of this drive, pass interference on NFA, and so George will go back to work. From the shotgun, a little delayed draw to Commander. Commander puts his head down. He bounces off of 3 different NFA defenders and falls forward for a gain of 6. In on the tackle was Rai Walenchewicz. Walenchewicz is one of my favorite players in the ECC. He is a hitter from the safety position, and he came up and whacked Commander, but a good gain on first down.
Very good gain, and exactly what the Whalers need to do. Need to get a nice sustained drive. First time into Wildcat territory, I might add. But very important series for the Whalers.
3 receivers in the pattern, and George will throw. Over the middle, crossing route. Henry stops on a dime, breaks a tackle, and he'll be thrown back, but I think he had enough for a first down.
Yes, he did.
Richard Henry, very physical receiver for the Whalers, and he took the job over the middle that time, moved the chains.
This is George, by the way, looks as efficient as Parker right now. The two very, very nice throws there.
We're going to talk a little bit as we go through this drive. We talked about the level of play and how the professionals have influenced it. We'll also talk about the athleticism of some of these players. Owen George is bigger than any quarterback of recent memory, and he's got a skill set that looks like he's a pro-style quarterback. He can really throw it. You talked about that back shoulder throw in the old days would have been a mistake. It wouldn't have been something you looked to do. I remember when I was here, and I've been gone a long time because I'm old too. But Timmy Reardon was the offensive coordinator, and he's a guy that played professional football. Right. And I remember our offense was so much more advanced than everybody else's because he brought with him some of the things that he learned at the collegiate and pro level.
It was a pro-style attack, no question.
Yeah, it was, and it was so much different. Now, I mean, just everybody has these sets, and it's remarkable.
Well, in between quarters, I'll talk about that with you. I got a little theory on that.
So 2nd and 8, George will throw. Little inside mismatch route was, I think, miscommunication.
I think somebody ran the wrong route because the Whalers had a lot of people in the same place.
And Nazell Hodges and Zeke Burgess were both in the same area. And I think George threw it to where he thought one of them was supposed to be, and no one was there. And it'll bring up 3rd and long. And we should give a shout-out right now to the sports doctor, Keith O'Brien and Mike DeMoro. They're over at the Waterford East Lyme game tonight as Game Day brings you multiple games, split coverage here on Thanksgiving Eve. So if you're watching the oldest high school football rivalry, you're watching us. Otherwise, you can go over and watch the sports doctor and Mikey D. Low snap, but George handles it. Shuttle pass out. It goes to Commander. Commander slips a tackle, spins, and we're going to get a flag.
We're going to get a hold, I'm afraid.
And we know where that one comes from. There's that one flag that only could mean one thing. And George did a nice job picking that football up and getting it to Commander. Commander did a nice job staying on his feet, but I think it's going to be for naught.
You know, I'll tell you a case. One of the reasons for the heightened sophistication of sports in general at the high school level is the internet. I remember next door is one of the great defensive minds ever to coach in this area, Gilvarges. And when Mike Emery came up with that, I don't even know what the NFA was called, that propelled Fitch to, a number of great wins. Yeah. It was a very difficult offense to figure out, and you had to literally figure it out yourself. Now you go online, you say, how do you defend the read option? How do you defend? And there's like 2,000 YouTube videos explaining exactly what you can do. Information abounds, and those who are able to take advantage of it are successful, and those who want to stay with the old tried and true ways are likely to fall behind.
Well, at the end of
that's by the way, that's Mike DeMoro on notice about this.
Well, it's 7-0 NFA at the end of the first quarter. Casey O'Neill along with Jim O'Neill here at Canamella Field. It's funny because I just caulked my tub, and I did it because I went and watched 6 YouTube videos on how you efficiently should caulk your tub. I've also changed the sink drain and installed a really good 3-2 defense for my 6th grade travel basketball team. So you're right. I went on and I had we played Griswold last year, and they ran a 1-3-1 trapping defense in 5th grade.
These are 5th graders, huh?
Yeah, and they baffled us.
Because
my kids sometimes dribble with their heads down because they're in 5th grade. Now they're in 6th grade though. And I went on I went on YouTube and I went, what offense should I run against the 1-3-1 defense? And I had 6 videos come up and I watched them, and we put in a 2-1-2 and they only beat us by 20 the second time we played them.
Improvement. That's the name of the game, Case. Improvement.
But I mean, for a kid like Owen George, or Elijah Parker, they play football in the fall, but there's the passing league in the summer, and there's camps and the 7-on-7s they're going to. I mean, their proficiency is in direct correlation to the amount of reps they get, which is not the case in years past. Here we go, George on 3rd down. Deep sideline route looking for Burgess, and it's incomplete. Well defended as the ball was slightly underthrown. Well defended by NFA, and it'll be 4th down for the Whalers.
Very well defended, I might add. Had a step on the defender, but not able to make the completion. Good defense. You see this level of change though throughout all of sports now. I mean, just things are much more advanced than ever before. Coaches know more than ever before. They have access to more information than ever before. It makes the game better.
We should give Nate Cody credit for that good defense on that fourth down play and the third down play, and now the Whalers will punt. And I'll give a shout out to Jay Holsworth watching from his couch. The NFA graduate Holsworth is a true Whaler at heart. And that ball will go into the end zone, and it'll be looks like a touchback. Or are they going to say, did he get there in time? They're going to go touchback.
I think they're giving him the first. I think they're giving him the 1 yard line, and I'll tell you why, Case.
Yeah.
He gained possession of the ball in the field of play. That ball is down as soon as the kicking team gains possession, or not just a touch. He gained possession of the ball at the 1 yard line, and they're now discussing it. But I think they're going to give him the play at the 1 yard line.
They are, and that's an enormous difference, obviously, the 1 versus the 20. So here's an example of where we all see those pro guys, they run down, and they all jump, and they swat the ball backwards. Because in order to have possession in the NFL, the ball can never, under any circumstances, break the plane, correct?
Right.
So, but in high school, all you have to do is get possession.
Get possession in the field of play, yeah.
And so that's going to put NFA on the 1 yard line, and that's a huge play. So they'll operate now. NFA does not change what they do from any place on the field. They're going to operate that same offense. They're going to throw it out of the back of the end zone. They've got Blue in the backfield with Parker here on first down. And Blue will get the ball, and New London saw that one coming and right up the middle for no gain.
The point I was also going to make before, why is the game better too? Years and years and years ago, you started football season on September 1st, and on Thanksgiving Day, you put the pads away, and you never picked up a football or anything else related to football again. That is absolutely no longer the case.
No, like we said, these kids will be lifting. I mean, we talked about the weight rooms. The athletic facilities are fantastic. They'll be working out football year round, and it is definitely the talent is there, but the skill level is higher because they practice more. Plenty of time. Parker, now he throws it out in the flat to Preston, and Preston will be banged down, but he might have enough for a first down. Nice job by Parker that time, keeping his awareness.
He's only at the 5 yard line. He's well short.
I could blame that on my vision, but
you could.
But that would be wrong.
That would be wrong, and you don't want to be wrong in front of your old man.
No. You know what I did was I was setting you up to correct me. That was a test. I knew all along that he was at the 5.
And I fell for it.
You did, but you corrected me. Nice job. See, that's what you're here for, just making sure you're paying attention. So 3rd and 5. Parker's going to throw. Pressured over the middle. Has Pomeroy. Hits him in stride. Pomeroy tries to get outside and does. And he'll be wrestled down up at the 18-yard line. Beautiful play. There's that drag route again over the middle of the field.
Really good scheme again. He had a man in motion that went to the flat. He had an end that came to the outside, and Pomeroy just simply dragged across the middle of that zone, wide open.
Move the chains, and NFA goes NASCAR. They like the fast pace, and we're going to get a flag here on the play. Well, New London put pressure that time. They sent that corner blitz, and so Parker knew if that guy's coming over the corner that part of the field was going to be open.
That's what a receiver is, right?
And he waited for Pomeroy to clear and to get into that space of the zone. But the pass was really very good. He hit him in stride. A lot of times you see that ball.
He's been on target all night.
Yeah. You put that ball behind the guy a little bit, and he falls down at the first down marker. He got 15 extra yards by leading him. That was really nicely done. So backs him up 5 yards. NFA will have it 1st and 15. Handoff straight up the middle, and maybe 2 yards that time. But the interior of the New London defense, a little more stout that time.
Well, the Wildcats haven't really run the ball with any great success. But they throw the ball with great precision.
And into the wind now, which is we talked about earlier, the wind playing a factor. This is their first time. 5 receivers, empty backfield. Do you think Parker's going to throw? Well, he is. Plenty of time, steps up, and nice job on the coverage that time by the Whalers. That's what we call it's not a sack because he crossed the line of scrimmage, but that's a coverage play that time for New London. Clayton Smith wrapped up Parker. It'll bring up 3rd and long. 3rd and 7 with 9:12 remaining here in the first half. 7-0 NFA on top.
Big stop for the Whalers here.
Mulkentine comes in motion. Parker's going to throw. Plenty of time. Sideline, that's underthrown and incomplete, nearly intercepted out there. And you saw the wind.
You know, I'm just going to say, one of the things that the wind may not do is affect Parker quite as much as it, because really it's a short passing game that Norwich runs. But there was a time where he tried to go up on top deep, and, the wind, you're absolutely right. He threw it into a wall.
Now, Eric McNeil had good coverage, but even McNeil couldn't intercept it because it was even underthrown for the defensive player to intercept it. That ball really died.
Unless this is Lecker kicking, our Whaler receivers are a little too deep.
Oh, Parker, who can punt, and that goes nowhere. Any doubt if there's any wind, your best bet is to hit it low and let it roll. This is like playing, it's like playing a golf course, and with the winds, blowing right in your face. You got to hit the Texas wind, that tin cup low draw that you can do.
You're good at that too. You're an accomplished golfer.
I can draw almost anything.
Yeah, he's a
Want me to see it? Want me to see it? Draw a clown? I'll draw one right now.
That's good. That's good.
Want to draw Snoopy? Look,
there you go. That's good.
Look, there's Snoopy right there.
That is good.
And there's Snoopy right there. I can tell you, I'm fantastic. So the Whalers are going to have a really good field position. They're going to start in NFA territory at the 45-yard line because of the difficulty punting, and the Whalers now
let's see if they take advantage of the wind.
George can throw it for sure. First down. Here's a little draw to Commander. Commander takes it off of left tackle and fights forward for about 5 on first down.
Well, he is just a tough back. I mean, he's got a little bit of wiggle in him. He's strong. He's got certainly decent speed. I asked Johnny Burns, is he a college back? And he said, yeah, I think he definitely is. I think, with the right preparation, and he could find himself doing well in a college program.
Yeah, all I'll tell you about his speed is I haven't seen him get caught.
Yeah.
So when he gets out there, he's fast enough. And he is so hard to tackle. He's legs moving. George in the flat hits his receiver up close to the first down. It goes to Hodges, and that'll be right at the chains.
Tough throw, by the way, and a good one. That's a throw with the receiver running away from you. There's really not much of a window there, but George able to fit it in, and the Whalers again with an important 3rd and 2.
Yeah, definitely 4-down territory here for New London. So they do have the opportunity to do just about anything in the playbook. They could go with Commander here, but I wouldn't be surprised. New London loves that play action. Get the ball into Burgess's hands, their big playmaker. And NFA is going to talk it over. 7:29 here, 7-0.
I noticed stands over across the way have started to fill in. There's a decent crowd along the fence here. I know this is not the kind of crowd you would get on a Thursday morning. But so what? I mean, this is a nice night for football. These kids are going to remember this game. It is, after all, the oldest high school football game in the universe.
In the universe.
To quote my dear old friend Tommy Major.
Now, they have played, this is the 157th matchup. I mean, that's almost hard to process.
Now, if Gary McEwicky joins us at halftime, and I hope he will have a different record than I do.
I thought you were
New
going to say
London and Norwich have argued over this for about 103 years now.
I thought you were going to say he was at the first one. Right? He
was watching me play.
The day has it listed at 77, 68, and 11. That's what they have. NFA.
That's NFA numbers.
Shotgun, George gives it to Commander. Commander fights, and he'll be up close to the first down marker, but not quite there.
I think he's just short.
He will be, but the Whalers will.
This is 4-down territory.
Yeah, they'll go for it in 4th down.
By the way, another one of the disadvantages of being in a spread offense is these kinds of plays are no gimmies.
Yeah. Yeah, you sometimes forget how to. This is where, a good quarterback sneak can go a long way when we have, and that's something we've seen.
Tom Brady here?
That's what I'm saying. He has someone who can do that.
Yeah.
And that's why, you see Brady run that because that is their most effective short yardage play on this short down distance. They didn't give him much of any gain on that play. It's going to be 4th and 2, so we'll see.
Good timeout by the Whalers here. Make sure they have the right play and know what they want to do here.
You're right about the crowd, though. The crowd is definitely bigger than we anticipated, and this is a tough place to gauge the crowd because so many people stand. They don't sit in the stands, but the NFA side of things is quite full. And you got people along the fence line. So this is a nice crowd. I know that we're being watched right now, live stream down at Philomena's. So
And at the Birdseye.
Birdseye loves us down there,
Yeah.
and hopefully that a few other places. I know that
Might have more sports fans per capita than any other bar in the world, the Birdseye.
I will tell you right now, you're right, and the Birdseye probably has more competitive everything. Card games, the pitch tournament at the Birdseye is like, it's like legendary. You try to get in there, you got to bring it.
Also, by the way, I might add one of the most generous donors to local charity that we know of. Birdseye Tavern.
Every steak dinner you need to raise some money, go to the Birdseye.
Yeah, exactly.
Fourth down, handoff to Commander. He's hit at the line of scrimmage, and I think NFA is going to hold. And they're certainly, they're celebrating. While Whalers had 2 cracks for 2 yards and couldn't get it.
Interesting call. Faked the sweep, and on a counter gave it to Commander up the middle as if, it was a surprise that Commander got the carry, but very slow developing play, open to second guess, I would say.
Yeah, you're moving the ball through the air. You're moving the ball well. You get into a short yardage situation, and you start thinking you have to run the ball. I would have liked with 2 cracks to maybe see him go up on top one time, but NFA will take over into the wind with 6:55 remaining. I think you're going to see them keep the ball short and on the ground. In motion, Pomeroy, handoff, Preston, and Preston rips off 6 on first down.
Whalers are starting to get some penetration, though. I mean, that Preston just simply went by them, but this will be important, and especially into the wind.
Well, back when you broadcast for WNLC, I promise you never got the kind of messages we get here on game day. Hello from Georgia. Well, hello, Bran Flakes down there in Georgia. Now, I don't know if you're high fiber or not, but they watch us everywhere. We're live in Georgia right now.
Love Georgia.
Do love Georgia. We're all over
the place. It's always on my mind.
The Devil went down there one time.
Yeah, I heard.
It's third and short. Parker gives it to Preston. Preston has the first down, and he's hammered right at midfield.
Still a good push up front by the Wildcat front 5, and they'll need to continue that because they're going to want to keep the ball on the ground here into this win. I think they saw what the wind did before, so you might see a little bit more running from the Wildcats, but they can't get away from what they are. They are a West Coast offense that throws the ball short, and that's who they are.
Yeah, Whalers are seeking the press coverage right now. They know they're going to have a hard time throwing it deep. So pressure, nice throw over the middle to Pomeroy. Pomeroy bounces off a tackle. Pomeroy down to the 20-yard line. Now that was a very good throw into the wind by Parker.
That is what you call impressive on both ends. Pomeroy just found himself right in the correct spot in the zone, and Parker just laid it in there perfectly. I mean, just a perfect throw into the wind, deep throw into the wind.
So first down. Parker's going to keep it himself, head towards the sideline. He'll be tripped up, and he'll dive forward for 5. And NFA in business here. It'll be second down. Now, you're being watched not only in Georgia and the Birdseye and at the Philomena's, but say hello to your grandson, because he's watching you right now. He's listening and watching right now, too.
My boy?
Yeah, he's listening to you right now.
Boy?
He says you're doing a great job.
Yeah, well.
Grandpa, he's very impressed with Grandpa right now.
My boy is...
and the
my pride and joy.
Mrs. Voice of Game Day says we're warming her heart. She's making pies, and we're warming her heart. And Preston's going to have a first down. Yeah, she's she's a woman of many talents. Pie making is among them.
That is true, by the way.
Yes, it is true. It's true. NFA is going to have first and goal here. Whalers a little bit on their heels. I think that throw to Pomeroy on third down really kind of caught them off guard. They are now backpedaling a little bit. First and goal, NFA. Preston will go and fly out into the flat and over the middle, just a little bit high for Pomeroy at the goal line.
That's a play they've gone to 2 or 3 times already where they'll run it back into the flat trying to take the corner with him and let Pomeroy find a soft spot in the zone. But Whalers were kind of wise to it that time, and the ball was a little bit overthrown as well.
So second and goal. Preston stays in the backfield.
1-on-1 coverage back out here on our short side.
Ball's going to be kept by Parker, and Parker not much doing. That's going to bring up third and goal. The Whalers have done a nice job staying at home on that read option when Parker keeps the ball.
Johnny Burns would be thrilled to get out of here 7-0.
Absolutely, and I don't think a field goal is on the table right now with the wind in their face from this hash. I think you're looking at 2 cracks at the end zone. And this has been a tough spot for NFA. They had problems with the Killingly game. They had problems earlier in the season
Well,
as
the
well.
field shortens, and this is, what happens with most spread offenses, that down in here in the red zone, it gets a little bit tighter. The coverage is, you don't have as much field to have to defend.
And if you can stop that play right there, if you can stop that dive play, then this is where you need the big tight end that can go over the guy that one-on-one jump ball. In the NFL down here, that's what they do.
Interesting decision by Coach Bakulas here today. Right now, he's going to go for it on 4th down, and he's eschewed the field goal.
You know what? When the sports doctor's here, we don't get enough words like a shoe. He thinks that's what you have on your foot. Parker's going to keep it himself. He's going to roll left. He's got one man to beat. He hurdles, dives for the end zone, ball loose. And either way, it's going to be turnover on downs because he didn't get there. We'll see where the officials mark it.
Boy, I wish I could see who made a great saving tackle at the goal line. Completely upended Parker, but some Whaler made a heroic stop at the goal line. In fact, it might be. Is that Parker down on the field? Okay.
We got multiple guys down on the field right now. Jalen Commander's down on the field for New London. And down on the far side for NFA, that might be Parker. So we'll let them sort it out. And while they're sorting it out, we'll talk a little bit more about this rivalry and this game. And when is the first? Of course, we'll talk at halftime about this game and Thanksgiving. But just in this rivalry, who are the players? What was the best game you ever saw in this rivalry?
There's no question what the best game was. It was 1968, and I know that sounds like ancient history to a lot of people, but for old New Londoners and old Norwichites, it's not. It was a 37-33 final up at Norwich. New London was the number 1 ranked team in the state at the time, undefeated. Paul Jakobilski kicked a 48 9-yard field goal to put the Wildcats ahead with 2 minutes to go, and John Brennan led a spirited and important 4th quarter drive with 2 minutes to go, winning drive with big passes to Kevin Booth and Reggie Wheeler, and the Whalers scored and won, and Norwich still had a chance to win. Jakobilski, who's also the quarterback, had an end zone Hail Mary toss that was picked off by Timmy Lewis, and Eddie Ritter made a great interception at the end of the game. The game was billed as, would be quite an upset if Norwich stayed with them. Norwich had every chance to win. They played just great football that day. Gave the Whalers, who was maybe as good a Whaler team as I've ever seen, gave them all they could handle. Both teams walked off that field that day feeling they had truly accomplished something. That makes for a great football game.
The good news is that both Jalen Commander and Elijah Parker walked off the field on their own power, but the Whalers will take over on downs with a new quarterback in the game. A handoff straight up the middle to Commander, and he'll get about 9. They got Frankie Pratt, who has played some quarterback. They've had Pratt, they've had Commander. They've rotated different quarterbacks. Owen George not in there currently, as I think the Whalers just want to hold on to this football in the shadow of their own goal line. That game you mentioned, was that played here or were we at
that was at
Field?
Norwich, and it was packed. My dear friend Donald Scott, known to many of my pals as Humphrey, and I watched the game from the rocks on the top of the hill up there because it was the only seat we could get.
What year did they start playing here versus Veterans Field in New London?
Well, that's an interesting question because it should have been a lot earlier than it was, but this field was not ready for quite a few years. So the first Norwich New London game didn't, when the new high school was built in 1970, the field wasn't ready, and I'm going to guess somewhere around 73, 74 before the Wildcats played the Whalers. By the way, I had the fortune, believe it or not, to officiate a Norwich New London game. I was a referee at a Norwich New London game in the 1980s, and that was quite a thrill to be part of the oldest game in the universe.
Well, it's not Norwich County. It's not Groton County.
I tell you something. I do miss that bellowing voice, which annoyed so many, but not me. Tommy Major was the spiritual mentor, spiritual voice of New London athletics. Never mind football.
Train's coming.
You got to walk the hill and all of that.
Oh yeah, walk the hill. Still one of the fundamental. Other teams have emulated it. Other teams that have hills have made that something that they do. Hand off to Commander here on second down and not much doing. Now, here's a question as the historian in this
Sure.
game. So, this rivalry goes back, we said 157 times they've played. So,
Yeah.
it goes back a long way.
Yes, it does.
Where did they first start playing this game?
Where did they first start playing
Yes.
this game?
Where was New London's home field when they started, and where
I
was NFA's
believe when they
started?
started, they played at Morgan Park because that was Veterans Field had not been built yet, and I think they played they played at Mercer Field.
Mercer Field.
It's interesting. The Thanksgiving Day game before, which started, New London didn't play Thanksgiving Day games until the early 50s, and the game that was the Thanksgiving Day game was between the Fort and Shaw Street, two Italian communities in London who actually suited up, and they'd get 6,000 people to watch these two Italian communities. And anyone who knows in London knows that they're distinct communities, the Fort Trumbull area and the Shaw Street area. That was the game. My dad refereed one of those games when he was a young referee, and it was every bit as so-called traditional. It's funny because in talking to Coach Bakulis last night, his kids have known their whole lives have been nothing but Norwich and London on Thanksgiving. But of course, it wasn't always that way, and we'll discuss that at halftime. But it's still, special to play in a game that has, For example, I used to get a call every Monday morning after Thanksgiving when I went to my office from the New York Times. They want to know the result of the game
Right,
because they
the
covered
oldest high
that
school
game
football.
for years and years and years and years. I don't know if Gary still gets a call in or whether either AD does, but there's no question it was history, and it's good to see that it hasn't lost its importance. That's a good thing. These kids will be able to say something. I played in a game that has a kind of importance that is rarely seen.
The Whalers are going to go for it here on fourth down, 123 remaining. This is a very pivotal point in the ball game. They're going to try to draw them off.
Yeah, I don't see them not with the wind. Yeah, they just try to draw. They're going to kick the football.
So, this rivalry goes back. Mercer Field. Now, NFA, the campus of NFA has been around forever.
I'll probably be corrected, by the way. There's probably somebody at the Bird's Eye that says O'Neill is completely full of it. They started playing. New London High School played their first games at, and here they'll tell us.
That's true. If there is some historian out there, believe it or not, there are football fans still older than you.
It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, but they're out there. They're out there right now. So NFA, though, the campus of NFA, that's been there for a very, very long time.
Yep.
So was that field, even though I'm sure it wasn't turf, but that field, has that field always been there on the campus?
As long as I can remember, and that's I've been watching that game for almost 70 years.
So that's for most of our listening audience, for certainly everyone 40 and younger who thinks that everything was invented in 1985, they played basketball before Magic and Bird and Jordan.
Yeah. Speaking of which, by the way, that was why there was no Norwich on Thanksgiving Day in those games, because Norwich opened their basketball season on Thanksgiving night for years, for many, many years.
Well, they are going to go for it on fourth down. Fake the commander. Prats keeps it himself. He has a first down. Crosses field, gets a block on the outside from Burgess, leapfrogs a defender, and goes out of bounds. What a dynamic play by Frankie Prats.
Well, I got to say, I'm surprised. 1:14 on the clock in your own territory, and you go for it on 4th and 1 with a interesting play. You're relying on I don't want to say third string because that clearly isn't the case. Frankie Prats is a good
He's one of their two wide receivers, but you're relying on
relying on an athlete there.
Yeah.
That's the
it's their Tyreek Hill taking doing the Wildcat, so to speak. But
you ever see a game like that?
That was no. The answer is no. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow,
and I got asked today, do I want more of that? People, because defense is disappearing in both basketball and football. But I will admit, that was awfully entertaining.
That was awfully entertaining. And so is it. What do we got? We obviously have a penalty here.
They're going to explain
Bob
it.
Woods is explaining to Johnny Burns what the call was. I haven't seen a signal, so.
Well, if it's still fourth down, and it's backing them up, and it was 4th and 1, and now it's 4th and 6, I have no idea. I have no idea what the penalty is, though.
I haven't seen a signal.
That negates a big first down for New London, and And I think now we'll see them punt it away. Seven nothing NFA on top of New London. 1:04 remaining here in the first half. Jacob Commander will go to punt it away for the Whalers, and they'll let all the clock in the world run down before they snap this one. And NFA is going to come after it. And the Whalers have had problems, and they don't even have 11. They don't have 12. They don't have 11 on the field because sprinting on the field is Jury Marcus, and we're going to get a flag on the play. It's going to back up the Whalers a few more yards.
I still like to know what the penalty was. Perhaps Ed Wyant can tell us if maybe he saw the signal. If he did, he can let us know.
For those of you watching, I apologize. Typically, we have the score up on the screen, but we're going threadbare tonight because we've got multiple games. High snap, Commander handles it, and he gets it off just in time, and it comes down to Pomeroy. Pomeroy crosses the 30-yard line, and NFA, with 36 seconds remaining, has it at the Whaler 30. Normally, we have the scoreboard up on the screen permanently, but since we're doing the two games tonight, we're spread out, and so I will do my best moving forward as if it were radio to consistently remind you, where's my Vin Scully egg timer when you need it?
Well, again, now the Whalers are forced to make a big stop with 36 seconds. As I said, Johnny Burns would be perfectly happy to get into the halftime at 7-zip.
All right, here's a name for you to remember. I'm going to say hello and thank you for watching to Mark Hodge, who's watching from Southern California right now.
Southern Cal.
I appreciate that.
I love L.A.
No. Parker's going to throw, has time, and just overthrows his receiver out on the looking for Blue, and he overthrew him at the 20. Right now, because Mark expressed that right now the Maui Invitational is going on, and Duke is playing, and Jay Billis is covering it. And I said Jay Billis wishes he could be part of the oldest high school football rivalry in the universe.
I wouldn't trade places with him. I'd rather be here than Hawaii.
I'd rather be with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And doing the oldest high school football rivalry.
Than't you.
But if we could do it in Hawaii, that wouldn't be bad
cool.
either.
Yeah, I know it.
Blue goes in motion. Parker's going to throw. Has plenty of time over the middle, and a beautiful job. Tipped and incomplete. That's got to be Jeremiah Bollinger. That's Jacob Commander.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Jacob Commander goes up and gets it.
Playing in the zone, got in the soft spot, and got his hand up.
So Commander with a big play on second down, and with 25 seconds remaining, it'll be 3rd and long.
I'm still dying to find out what the penalty was against the Whalers on the long run by.
Yeah, we're gonna effort that. We'll find that out at halftime. 3rd down, clock running, the play clock running. The game clock stopped with 25 seconds. 7-0 NFA with one last crack at the end zone. Blue goes in motion. Parker's going to throw. A little pressure. Throws it. Blue hits him at the 30-yard line, and Blue stays in bounds. I'm not sure if that was the best choice, and now the clock's running, and the NFA will stop it with 15 seconds. Now, back in the days of WNLC radio, we would sit here and we would give shout-outs to all of the people that walked by, the aforementioned Tony Basilica and the Italian high five. Well, now what we do is we go, Matthew Wade's watching from England.
Honest to God.
Yeah, this is where we have fun. So
I feel like I've lived through it all.
You have. Anyway, England. So we got England, we got California, we got Georgia. So hey, Matthew Wade.
So literally from sea to shining sea.
From sea to shining sea. Now I don't know if do they fine you in England for watching American football on a Wednesday night? Shouldn't you be watching Man U or something right now?
$3.
Shouldn't you be watching a lovely diagonal feed?
Yeah.
7-0 NFA, 15 seconds remaining in the half, and the Wildcats
have it. Got to be an
end
zone throw, and we don't see anyone deep for the Whalers. No, it's a short throw, and
Jaheim Sproul, and he takes it right out at the 20-yard line. That's right where the marker is.
Well, I don't think downs mean a whole lot at this point.
Well, the question is, did he get the first down?
Oh, that was a 4th down throw, yes.
And
it's going to be close.
Well, certainly NFA saying they have it, but the officials have put it right on the line. And a first down with 9.6 seconds remaining. NFA is going to have a couple cracks at the end zone.
Well, that was well executed. Went for the first round to get themselves a couple of chances. With 9-6, yeah, you can get 2 throws into the end zone.
So Parker will operate. 4 wide receivers.
And again, with nobody deep on the inside, this near side of the field here.
Slow developing play. Parker, deep corner route looking for Pomeroy. Incomplete.
And there's a flag.
And the flag will come down. Now, if this was professional football, it'd be 1st and goal at the 1, but it's not.
At the 2, yeah, but it's not. It's that'll be half the distance to the goal line. It's so they'll get it at the 10 with 3 seconds left. If you're going to make a foul, there's the time to do it.
I don't think he did it on purpose.
I don't think he did either.
But it was a smart. But if he did, that was a smart play.
Yeah.
The only thing you can't do there is give up the touchdown, and that was.
Well, we got our setting fouls. I think we have a hold on. I think we have we had a hold on Norwich and pass interference and offsetting fouls.
So it'll result in 1st down with 3 seconds left. So this is it. 1 play left in the first half. 7-0 NFA, and with 3 seconds left, they'll call their last timeout,
yeah.
And they'll draw something up.
Well, again, the Whalers will be very, very happy to come off. They've avoided, for the most part, to this point, what they had plagued them in the last 3 games. That kind of awful slow start where they just fell behind, made mistakes, and found themselves unable to dig themselves out of deep holes. If they can, defend this pass here and go off 7-0, they've pretty much accomplished what they wanted to do, and then maybe they can find themselves in a better frame of mind in the second half.
Now, NFA kicked off to lead, and New London was going into the win. So NFA is going to have the ball to start the second half,
right?
Which I'm sure played into some of Johnny Burns' thoughts about going for it earlier. But here now, it becomes even more imperative. They somehow give up points here and then get the ball back to start the second half. I mean, that's
exactly the kind of disaster Johnny Burns does not want to have.
And I got to ask myself why there aren't 5 Whalers at the goal line, but a little underneath route and a little hook and lateral. Pomeroy has it. Pomeroy's heading for the end zone, and he gets in. Touchdown, NFA! Touchdown, Wildcats, as the buzzer goes off at halftime. Hook and lateral, and the Whalers bit like a largemouth bass.
That's just that is a backbreaker. That's the kind of things that just haunt you all year long when you give up that kind of. And then you got to give them the ball to start the second half. That's just the kind of mistake he was trying to avoid.
Unbelievable. The Whalers went flying to the football.
Yep.
And Pomeroy catches the hook and lateral and heads for the end zone. The officials threw a flag. I believe it was a celebration penalty. We'll see what the official comes out and tells us. There's a flag down, and they're going to go explain to Coach Johnny Burns.
Flags were thrown
after the play. So it is some form of penalties after the touchdown, but the touchdown will stand 13-0. Unbelievable.
Just stunning. You really have to be prepared. And you said it to begin with. Why there weren't 3 Whalers at the goal line?
Listen, I'm not a football coach. I don't claim to be, but I go back to 1989.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
New London Ansonia, when the greatest player in the history of New London football or New London sports, in my mind, Jamal Johnson, was left irrelevant on a deep pass play because they had him locked up with the receiver on the other side instead of playing a deep center field. And I
remember I talking to Jack Hunt after that game, and he said, all we wanted to do was, since Johnson was playing man-to-man, we just ran him off the other side of the field.
So what I've learned is I know where they're going. They got to go to the end zone. And I put 8 guys, at the 3-yard line, and that's unfortunate. Evans will come on to kick the extra point from his own from the 25-yard line. He gets a good foot into it, but that has got no shot.
No.
That has got no shot into that wind. And we're going to be at halftime. Your score at halftime, NFA 13, New London 0, in the oldest high school football rivalry in all the land. The Wildcats have taken a significant lead both in momentum, emotional value, and the actual score.
You can see it's just the way NFA is leaving the field now and the way the Whalers are. The Whalers really kind of have their head down. The Wildcats are completely energized. That's the kind of play that turns a football game around.
So we're going to keep it here. And, normally we have a halftime guest, but guess what? This isn't normal. I get to have you.
Yeah,
and,
oh boy.
And I'll tell you, for anyone out there who knows us knows we're not going to have a hard time filling 15 minutes talking about stuff. But, you mentioned earlier that when I think of the natural rival for New London, I don't think about Waterford, only because where I think of Waterford was all New London people that moved to Waterford. When I think of my rival, and it certainly Waterford is one, but I think of Fitch. I think of the Thames River rivalry. I think of even on the night of the fireworks, we get into a yelling contest with those people over in Groton. So that's the rivalry I think of. And going back, my first football memory goes back to about 1977, 78, and it was Fitch, New London, every Thanksgiving Day. And you remember Thanksgiving games with those two teams played in front of tens of thousands of people.
Absolutely. 10,000 was not an uncommon attendance at the old Veterans Field, Morgan Park, in New London, where the game, by the way, was played for many years, because Fitch's Field, Door Field, never really got ready. They played almost 20 years worth of continuous football at Veterans Field in London. So yeah, I was certainly appreciative of that game. It's the game I grew up with as well. I was 7 years old when I started watching the Thanksgiving Day football games, and so yeah, I'm appreciative of the history. But
so,
you're about to ask me a question. I'd love to answer.
I am. So Jason Bakulis said to us, my kids, who are 18 years old and younger, have no recollection of anything on Thanksgiving but New London NFA.
Right.
For those of us that remember, it's less than 20 years old.
It is less than 20 years old.
Why was the oldest high school football rivalry placed on Thanksgiving in replacing what was a traditional game between New London and Groton?
To save the game, essentially. Back in the early 2000s in the ECC, Gary McEwicky was the athletic director at Norwich Free Academy, and I was at New London before I went over to Waterford. And scheduling football just became the most difficult thing in the world. I mean, football dominated the new ECC in terms of problems. We could figure out ways to schedule games in every other sport, but football has its, according to football coaches and everybody else, this unique circumstance, and it does. It's a contact sport, so we understood that probably Fitch and Turtelot wasn't a game that we really wanted to play a lot.
Oh, so, Turtelot and play a lot. Just sorry, I enjoyed that.
Cool. So anyway, but here's what happened. The ECC divided into 3 divisions. People don't remember this, and New London was a small school at the time. So when we came out when we started to do scheduling, the idea was you had to play everybody in your own division, obviously, and then you would play crossover games with the other 2 divisions, and they would be had on a rotating basis. Well, that suddenly meant that the Norwich-New London game, the oldest game in the universe, or certainly in the country at that time, would no longer be automatically on the schedule. In fact, it would only occur once or twice out of every 4 years. Gary and I sort of talked. There was, we thought, a natural rivalry to replace the Fitch, because Fitch and Ledyard are certainly have great football histories. They're contiguous towns like Waterford and East Lyme. And New London and Norwich have been playing since the ball was literally stuffed with feathers. And we didn't think it was a good idea to lose that game, to have that game where it literally we'd have to give it up. And so by what each team was allowed to do was, as in addition to their crossover schedule, they were allowed to protect one game a year, their Thanksgiving Day game. Hence, even though Waterford and East Lyme would be in different divisions, that game would be played every year. Even though, and there were other examples, that they would be played every year. Well, that wouldn't have been the case with New London, and so we went to the ECC meetings and argued with the athletic directors. We had to talk to the principals about it. We were well aware that there would be some traditions disrupted. Keep in mind, there wasn't any real serious tradition of Norwich Thanksgiving football. Norwich had opened their basketball season on Thanksgiving night for many, many years. Never played a Thanksgiving Day game before they got into an ECC relationship with St. Bernard's, which that clearly wasn't going
No.
to last. Because the Saints, while they're once a great football power, obviously the school got smaller and things changed like that. So we prevailed upon the ECC to rearrange the Thanksgiving schedule, keeping the New London Norwich game as a Thanksgiving Day game, because it was the only way to ensure that the game would be played forever on a yearly basis.
Now I know a lot of people, my age and older, who say, well, can we get it? Can we switch them? Is there any reason why we can't get NFA earlier in the season and put Fitch back on the? I mean, they play now. They're going to New London is going to play Fitch and Fitch and NFA every year. Can we switch them back again? But it's interesting because there's something that seems right about the oldest high school football rivalry, also being a Thanksgiving Day game. There's some synergy there. I don't think it really matters a whole lot, who you play on Thanksgiving. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting when you say that because who's asking Legend and Fitch about that? They may be perfectly happy with what they had. That's a great game, and that has produced some of the best football games in the area over the last 10 years.
That's a great point.
So, I hate to say it, but I would say to all my old New London companions, it ain't all about you. It's about what's best for the ECC and best for what are the best rivalries and traditions of the ECC.
So you mentioned earlier that there are there are NFA numbers and New London numbers in terms of the all-time record of this rivalry.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. We can't even get a agreement on the record?
No, we can't agree. It's a 103-year argument. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. Nobody's going to agree to it. I've talked to Gary. Gary and I at one point thought that it would be good if we could come to some common ground, and agree that we'll split the difference kind of thing, and because there's discrepancies in the old records about who won some of the games that were, not even.
It wasn't even New London High School originally.
No,
right?
no, it was Buckley High School. So we're going to come to it, and we just, we decided maybe it's better off with the controversy.
So they have it, the NFA numbers.
Yeah.
77 for NFA, 68 for New London, and 11 ties.
A fraud, I say. Fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. You have it. Now you have it somewhere a little more even.
Yeah, New London has won every game.
You have it 156-0 for the Whalers.
No, we have it 2 games off.
2 games off. So you think it's more like 75-70 and 11?
Yeah. Although this was an interesting thing because at one point New London won during the 80s and they won 16 games in a row against the NFA, and that was things have certainly changed and it's going back in NFA's favor, and that's what a good rivalry should do. It's had its highs and lows and ups and downs, but it's the oldest game in the country. You got to have some respect for that.
Well, one of the other oldest games in the country, one of the great rivalries, is the only game, as far as I know, still on the schedule for tomorrow in the Arctic cold. Leave it to those longshoremen over in Westerly and Stonington to play in that game. So as far as I know, that game is still on tomorrow.
I've officiated that game, by the way.
Yes, you have.
And that is an experience.
Yeah.
That is that has as much passion and intensity as any football game at any level you're ever going to see. I mean, that is truly a tradition.
Well, I'll tell you, we love A.J. Maskiel over at Stonington, but friend of game day, Dwayne Miranda, the head coach at Westerly, has probably made about 75 pounds of soupy in preparation for this Thanksgiving Day game. The closest, Friday Night Lights, but the town of Westerly really does stop leading up to that game.
I was just talking with Richie Urso today. And Richie is Westerly. He was Richie's about 5'4".
Oh yeah.
And you don't want to argue with him, And he was the center on the Westerly high school teams. Still thinks that football coach saved his life, put him in the right direction. Richie's a very successful guy right now. We were talking about that earlier. How many kids are being impacted by people like this, by coaches who can put kids in the right direction? And football has a lot to do with that.
Well, and it's certainly not just football. We one of the great compliments that I ever got paid. We New London graduate Louis Martinez, those of you out there know him as Chino, is a now multiple published author.
Yeah.
His second book just got published, and he writes very realistically, very raw about his experiences as a teenager in New London, as a teenager who half the public saw as a athlete and student, and other one saw as a drug dealer, and he was both. And he talked about his struggles in his life, and he said to me, because I coached, as you know, the '94 state championship team here with the great Gil Vargas, who's 2 doors down, and Chino was the left fielder on that team, and he said that was one of the single most important years of his life. It's the first time he ever had what he considered a true group of friends, and it changed the trajectory of his life. I mean, the power of that statement to me was, overwhelming.
Well, there's a reason why prep schools insist that their students play 2 sports, 1 team sport and 1 individual sport, and it's because of the value that you can derive from both. I've never understood why when you have the most powerful influence on a kid's life, either a teacher or a coach, why the punishment for that kid for some misbehavior is to take him away from that positive influence. That always has baffled me. By the way, there's something else I wanted to mention to you. The Norwich New London rivalry has more than just. It's not just a bunch of people from up there against a bunch of people from down here. There's a lot of connections between Norwich and New London. Legendary head coach Jim Bunicor, who was Hall of Fame football coach in the state of Connecticut, got his start at NFA. And he got his start under a coach at NFA who became the principal at New London High School, Jim Giordano. And, of course, the great Bob McPhail, who was the longtime AD at Norwich Free Academy, Amherst grad, is a New London Chapman Tech kid, a Buckley kid, excuse me. All of these connections have been going on for years. That this has been a very close relationship between the 2 towns, and it's good that they get a chance to express it here. They're not too close that they know each other so well, but they're close enough that there's a connection between them.
Well, it's funny you say that, and yet at the same time you say that when you look at these rosters, you can pull out names and immediately go.
I saw Mulkin. As soon as I saw Mulkentine, I said, "Well, come on, this is where they still breeding all the Norwich kids that live in the same families." It's Jimmy was a great coach and athlete himself, so you do see them on these rosters, and it's great to see. As much as New London has changed too demographically over the years, you still see a lot of the same names from. And that's good to see. That's part of the rivalry.
It is, but it still freaks me out a little bit when I see like Damon Hastings, because I'm thinking I'm going to see the Damon Hastings that's my contemporary and it's his kid. That still freaks me out a little bit when my contemporaries' kids are starting in high school.
I walked into here tonight, and the first person I saw was Chris Pomeroy, who looks like he could still play center field for a good baseball team.
Yeah.
And here's his son as a star athlete at Norwich Free Academy. But not to mention all the John Iavinos and Duke Campbells and the people that we know that have sort of populated this rivalry for years. It's a good one. The first one I remember was an 8-6 game back in 1950 something, and we may see something like that tonight. Just to recap the first half a little bit, just exactly what we talked about in the pregame and in prepping for this broadcast. Could the Whalers avoid the key mistake? And for the better part of 23 minutes and 57 seconds, they were able to. And, committed not only a penalty, but also gave up a touchdown on a trick play that just shouldn't have happened.
Well, both teams are 5-4. They're both functions. NFA played what many regarded as the toughest out-of-conference schedule that you can imagine. They played 3 teams from the top 10 in the state. They beat a team like Xavier, and they played Windsor, and they played New Canaan. They play all kinds of good schools. And New London played Middletown, and they played Notre Dame. Good schedules, both of them. One of them's going to end up 500. One of them's going to end up 6-4. And I think for Johnny Burns, they're going to have lost 3 of their last 4 games, and it's a tough way to end the season. Ironically, this is not the most important game, if you will. There is one ECC team who has clinched a postseason berth. That's the Killingly Redmen. But there's another ECC team that people forget is in the ECC who is playing to get into the postseason for the first time, and you would probably know when. Their quarterback is a kid, the last name of Smith. His father, Pat Smith.
Really? For Plainfield?
Plainfield High School is playing tonight against Griswold, who's a good Griswold team. And if Plainfield wins, they will make the postseason, and they'll make the playoffs, and that's a big deal for them.
Oh, that's a huge deal for Plainfield. By the way, always been a good football town. All right, back to the Carpenters, and when Pat Smith played there, one of the toughest guys you're ever going to see play football. Pat Smith's a terrific guy and terrific coach. I wish them luck because I have a special affinity for Plainfield. Johnny Shifner's a friend of mine, certainly from up that area, and they weren't afraid to play up in the ECC. They weren't afraid when they were in the ECC before the big teams entered to play up. They gave it their best shot. They had some good teams, and I hope to God they make it. That'd be good.
Well, Plainfield, Griswold is the most, has the most ramifications tonight. It's interesting because we had this conversation, but the ECC North, if you will, is putting a charge into the ECC South for sort of supremacy. Woodstock Academy has won. They won boys and girls soccer. The Woodstock Academy won the volleyball championship. Plainfield is about to, Killingly will be the only two postseason representatives out of the ECC. Basketball has allowed, some of the locals with Waterford, East Lyme, New London, to sort of maintain their foothold. But the northern part of the ECC, the Northeast, has really elevated their game here of the past couple of years. And there's a nice little rivalry within the ECC, for those old enough remembering the QVC, but those Northeast
everybody
schools,
up there remembers the QVC.
Of course they do.
That was the question I really wanted to ask Gary McAwicky. I've been gone for a while now. I was there at the birth of the ECC, and I would say fairly instrumental in putting it together. And I knew that it would take patience, a generation, to really cement the kind of thing, because everybody was so concerned about what was going to happen to their school. Were they going to have to play a schedule that they really weren't capable of playing? They wanted to have a full schedule, but they just didn't want to play those guys. Every football coach wanted a schedule with 9 patsies on it and one tough game at home. But you can't deliver that to people, and so it was difficult to do. And Gary and I knew it would take a generation. I'd be interested to see what he thinks is the state of the ECC at this point. I mean, they'll always have. It's hard to administer something that big, 18 schools and different emphases on different things at different schools. It's a very difficult, and different demographics at different schools. It's certainly a challenge, but I think they've met it. You see more of it than I do now.
Yeah, they have, but we still see, and Mike DeMoro is the sort of soapbox king for our cause when it comes to the CIAC. The hot button issue right now are schools of choice, and how can Immaculate, be on the same field as Old Lyme, and how can Trinity Catholic, and we see all the time. The ECC has a couple of schools of choice. New London is one of them. Without the Science and Technology Magnet School, New London's an S school, and you talked about New London does never wants to have a year where they can't play Fitch, where they can't play NFA,
right,
where
sure.
they can't play Ledyard. But without Science and Technology, they're an S school.
That's right.
Ledyard would be an S school at this point, bordering on M, without the VOAG program that brings kids in there. So for all the NFAs who draw from a large portion, you've got a really interesting dynamic in the ECC when you look at the aforementioned Plainfield, St. Bernard's, which is such a tiny little school now, and schools like NFA. So now the scheduling in football in particular has become, instead of 9 patsies in a home game, it's become 4 schools in the conference that I might be able to beat, and 4 schools out of conference that I might not be able to beat. All of these schools are following the template of playing we play the co-op with the down south, Notre Dame's of Hill House and that conference.
Well, football's always is the toughest to adjudicate and schedule. It really is. It has its own unique set of problems. At least but let's be honest. It's going to take a lot more courage than some of our governing organizations have been able to muster to recognize that what is a level playing field is something that it will require courage to implement. And so far, not so good as far as that. Now the ECC's made, I think, as good an effort as anyone to try to do that.
I think the ECC has done an excellent job at doing that. Now, watch we technology right now.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to have you talk,
Yeah.
and I'm going to send a text
Okay.
to my Plainfield guy.
Oh,
and I'm going to see if I can get a score. Because the last
You have
score,
a Plainfield guy?
Mark Irons, who is my coworker, technically my boss, and his son Jake, who by the way,
that's right.
Jake, who will be a professional broadcaster someday, because he's not going to let anybody stop him from doing it. And the kid's got talent. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to text him. See, look what we're doing here. We're texting, we're live streaming. I'm going to text
I'm 73 years old and baffled by all this technology. Although my grandson just texted me, so.
Well, I'm going to go into the magic talking box right now. And,
Well, I'm going to tell you that the Whalers will be kicking into the wind in the third quarter, so they'll have the wind in the fourth quarter.
But will they need 4 touchdowns in order to?
That really is. I just think the first 3 plays are going to tell you a lot about what's going to happen in the rest of this game, because the Whalers were dealt a gut punch at the end of the first half, and if they can recover from that, well, they really deserve credit. The semi-onside kick, and I think the Whalers may have recovered.
No, it bounced off a Whaler into a Wildcat. Well, talk about when the brakes aren't going your way. Oh, man, that ball was all-day Whalers, and it bounced off of New London up onto Sean Preston of the Wildcats, and NFA will have it on first down.
I don't know if that was as much a onside kick as it was kind of a squib kick, because you can't kick it very far into the into the wind. Whatever it was, it worked perfectly. All they had to do was recover it.
Johnny Burns has talked all about character and how this season has been about character building for his kids under his first year in his program, and how these kids are, at the end of the day, still very fragile teenagers. Well, we're going to find out. 7-0 Griswold with 4 minutes remaining in the second quarter. I'm going to tell my guy.
Nice downhill run right away by the Wildcats.
Yeah, Preston on first down with a big gain.
You really are connected, aren't you?
Well, I'm going to say, please keep me updated.
Okay, yeah.
We are sending it. We're sending the updates.
You got quick twitch thumbs.
Disposable thumbs. They knew back then that it was going to be for texting.
Apparently, yeah.
Parker's going to throw, pressured by Commander. Commander gets to him as the ball's in the air, and what a great throw and catch. Out on the sideline, Jaheim Sproul brought it down for the Wildcats. What a great throw.
Absolutely. Great throw is right. He's well covered. The ball was just put in a perfect position.
And we talked about a throw that you see from the modern high school quarterback. And that's the throw from the modern high school quarterback. That was well done. First down, little quick throw out in the flat to Sproul. Sproul, little bubble screen, but nicely defended out there by the Whalers.
Still a good 5-yard gain to, so I don't know if you that's a good gain on a bubble screen, because you always have the option of it just simply breaking open too.
Yeah, the NFA likes that little bubble screen. Sproul's a playmaker on the outside. Handoff straight up the middle, Preston, and he'll be up near the first down marker. They're at halftime. Griswold has a 7-0 lead over Plainfield at halftime.
The Wildcats have run that play half a dozen times already. They fake the jet sweep, and there's a counter to the tailback with a nice full block. As I mentioned before, some nice blocking by the right side of the Norwich line.
Third and short, less than a yard, and Parker will operate. Pomeroy will go across the formation, and Parker is going to step up. He was pressured. Still being pressured, rolling left, and he'll be chased out of bounds. And depending on the mark, he will be right at the first down marker. And they'll have enough for the first, and they'll move the chains. I got a hello, Mr. O'Neill, from Frankie Florio, who's watching.
Frankie.
He says, happy Thanksgiving. He's enjoying listening to the old lion and the older lion. I guess it's no longer the older lion.
More than a few Florios have come through related to, of course, you know whom.
The Susie family.
That's right, exactly.
Of course they are. That's Preston with a tough run up the middle. Wow, look at Sean Preston still going and churning, burning for more yards. Sean Preston, and the body language of the Whalers right now is
not good.
No, a little bit.
Not good.
Right now, the NFA is just a little bit.
Well, you're really gonna when you've been dealt that kind of gut punch, you're down a little bit. You're going to see it mostly in the front five against their front seven. And right now, Norwich is winning that battle.
Parker's going to throw. Plenty of time over the middle, and he just overthrows Pomeroy who was cutting down at the 5-yard line, incomplete. It'll bring up third down. 9:52 remaining here in the third quarter. 13-0 NFA on top.
I wonder if the Whalers will look to jump that route. I mean, Pomeroy has run that route more times tonight than you can count. They're certainly the staple of their offense, especially with that kind of time. And he had plenty of time to throw.
NFA looking over toward the sideline, and they'll send Blue into the slot now. So empty backfield here for the Wildcats on 3rd and 6.
Bunch left here.
Whalers showing pressure up the middle. Now they drop out of it. Parker has time. Throws it behind Blue in the air and incomplete. That was one of the few times that Parker did not put the ball where he wanted to.
Also, I think it was one of the few poor choices he made. That really wasn't where the ball was designed to go. He had one-on-one coverage on the right side of the formation and really threw into what amounted to a crowd over there.
So that'll bring up 4th.
He hasn't made many ill-advised throws, I'll say that.
No, he's made both good choices and good throws. So, that's a tough combination. That time, maybe not the best choice and certainly not the best throw. 4th down, Blue goes in motion. Pressure. Parker deep over the middle, and it's incomplete out of the back of the end zone. That one really never had a chance. And he was pressured and hit as he threw it, and that ball sailed high on him. And
the Whalers will take over on downs. It's a big stop for the Whalers, especially after the big completion that put them well positioned in Whaler territory. Now the Whalers need to move the football. They really have been sporadic about that. Now they've got to sustain something.
Into the winds, you got to expect to see a lot of commander, but they did have success with George throwing it short into the wind. We're going to credit Donovan Jeffcoat, by the way, for pressuring Parker that time. The sophomore from New London got them with the ball back, and we're going to see Prats as the quarterback here, and the Whalers will operate from the eye. Handoff off tackle, commander, and not much there.
I think the Whalers keep waiting for Jacob to simply break one big. For the most part, Norwich has done a pretty good job in containing him. He's piled up his yards, though.
He has, but he has not had the 25, 30-yard run, which we see from him a lot. The other thing that we haven't seen is they love to use him in the wheel route out of the backfield, but I don't know if they can do that into the wind, but that's a staple of their offense as well. From the eye again on 2nd down. Handoff again, Commander straight up the middle. This time, nice spin move juke in the open field. Commander crosses the 40, crosses the 45-yard line, and down to the 47.
As we speak, it's exactly the kind of play they've been looking for from Jacob Commander. They got to get some chunk plays because they just really haven't been crisp enough to sustain a drive. So they're going to need some of those kind of chunk plays to make an offense go for them.
Well, Chad Neal of Killingly, when they were defending New London, said you have to hit Commander at the line of scrimmage. You cannot let him get past the line of scrimmage or else he becomes a mess. The elusiveness as well as the power. 1st down, Whalers, and Commander's the lone setback. Prats is the quarterback, and we go toss left. Cuts it back inside, puts his head down, and he'll push the pile forward for maybe a yard.
Good, well played by Norwich. They strung it out pretty well. Commander never really had a seam to hit there, so held him to a yard there, and that's what you really want to do with him. You want to avoid letting him get to that second level.
Yeah, he really is a difficult guy to bring down, like you said, because we've seen the shimmy, we've seen the spin, we've seen the straight power, so you got to get him at the line. Whalers will go back to the eye here on 2nd and 9. A little wrinkle. Jalen Commander gets the handoff, and he bounces off the tackler and finally wrestled down by a host of Wildcats. But Jalen Commander was power.
Interesting design. That was almost out of a triple I formation. Commander came in motion, and Jacob Commander, that is, and followed both the fullback and his older brother off the right side of the line. Not a bad gain, about 8-yard gain. Brings up 3rd and 3.
So 2 Commanders. Now if there's a general, do Commanders trump on general?
I'll have to check
with your brother. Find out what that's.
Check Google with that one.
You can ask your brother.
I can ask my brother. That's right.
Handoff again to Commander. Commander has a 1st down up to the 40-yard line.
It'll be close. Let's see where they mark it.
No, he's up. He's gonna have a 1st down easy.
Easy, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We're never gonna bring the chain. Oh, that's a bad spot. You heard me talking. The officials heard me talking, and now they're gonna mark it short. That was done out of spite.
They wanted to mark it so they could do a measurement. Officials love to measure.
They want to take the extra time.
Yeah. There's no yellow line out here.
On a cold night like tonight, what we want to see you move the chains.
A lot of measurements. Yeah.
We want to see you move the chains.
I say 3 inches short.
I say the length of a football. I think it's longer than that. I'm just very disappointed in that spot.
Yep, 3 inches exactly. See, that's what he said.
He did.
That's
he said 3 inches.
3 inches, yeah.
So clearly, that was done out of spite. The officials that time did that out of spite. And all right, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's going to bring up 4th and inches, and clearly the Whalers will go for it here on 4th down. And I have a hard time believing that if you put Jacob Commander under center and just have him go quarterback sneak, that you can stop him from getting 2 inches. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not a football coach.
No, you're not.
I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express. I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express either, by the way. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But they're going to send Pratt's under center on 4th and, you said 3 inches?
Yes.
3 inches, all right. And they give it to Commander straight up the middle, and it's going to be close.
That's going to be close.
It's going to be close, and it's going to depend entirely on the spot.
Bob Woods has already called it a first down, so move those chains. Yes, sir. They'll move those chains.
The Whaler great, Jason Appleby, wants to know why you question everything.
I do?
That's what he said. Why does your father question everything?
It's part of my instructional method. You should know that.
Intellectual curiosity, something Jason Appleby should
part
know
of
about.
my Socratic method.
There you go. George back in the game. He's going to throw on 1st down and hits Commander in the hands, and off the hands it goes. 2nd down.
That was the younger Commander.
That was Jalen, yes.
Yes.
A lot of great games here at Canamella Field where I would root on the aforementioned Mr. Appleby, number 75 on the field. Number 1 in your hearts, though, everybody, the Jason Appleby, the great dual lineman.
Jason, by the way, I never saw anybody more tired than after the Ansonia game where he was up against the guy that played San Diego State there, you know.
Armando Stallings.
Yeah, that's the man.
2nd down.
Jason battled into a standstill, though.
He sure did.
Oh,
There's Burgess on the slant. Burgess has a step. Burgess racing for the end zone, and he's tackled at the 5-yard line. Brought down on the play by Xavier Marquez, but Zeke Burgess have the Whalers knocking on the door.
Beautiful throw, beautiful route.
There's the playmaker, Burgess. George hit him, and the Whalers into the wind with a little life.
Important for them to score into the wind, too, by the way. If they can get a score here, that's a big boost for their chances.
Yeah, 5:50 remaining here in the 3rd quarter. Whalers knocking on the door. 1st and goal from the 7-yard line. And the officials are talking it over. They're going to send one of the Wildcat players off the field, so that's probably an equipment issue. They're going to send Naziah Paul off, and he will get replaced by Nick Kaneko. 6-yard line. 1st and goal, Whalers. George, there's a little draw to Commander, and it's sniffed out. Beautiful job by the Wildcats.
That was a problem from the beginning to begin with.
One of the great names, Becker Bordeaux, the linebacker for NFA.
Don't you think he should play for like a French team?
He should play for Gonzales, Louisiana. Shortstop, Becker Bordeaux.
Oh, man, absolutely.
Jason Appleby, by the way, says it was not a standoff with Stallings. He said he owned him. He said it was plus side Appleby.
That's called revisionist history.
George to throw. Has his man.
Oh, they
touchdown,
got it. Yeah,
Whalers. Nazell Hodges, the senior, gets the Whalers on the board. 13-6. NFA on top, but the Whalers have some momentum.
Nice throw, better catch, and that could energize the Whalers entirely. That really. Did you like the body language coming out for the second half?
No, I didn't. I didn't like the body language as NFA was driving the field either.
No. But they managed to turn it around now and are within a score.
They are within a score, 13-6, NFA on top. And the Whalers will send out the kicking team for the extra point. And this is an important extra point here because the NFA did fail to convert on one of theirs. Kick is up, and it is good. 13-7 with 4:54 remaining here in the third quarter.
Well, we got ourselves a heck of a ball game here, Case, on a what turned out to be a really nice night, good crowd, good ball game. This has turned out to be a far better night for football than we expected.
Yep, and again, for those people tuning in and watching, you have the oldest high school football rivalry in all the land. The New London High School Whalers trailing the NFA Wildcats 13-7. Over at Waterford and East Lyme, you've got the sports doctor Keith O'Brien and the mouth of the day. I'm the voice of the day. The mouth of the day is Mike DeMoro. I guess maybe he's the pen. Should we call him the pen?
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. He is. He's an old, cantankerous old man. You and your music, you and your rock and roll. Get off my lawn. When I watched baseball, the greatest player was Mickey Mantle. Mike, he was dead before you were even watching baseball. Yeah, that's Mike. 4:54, 13-7. Whalers going to kick off, and the NFA will have the win, but not for a whole long time. Not for a lot of time. There's that squib kick again, and it hops up nicely, and falling to the ground is Jaden Lame. And
that's more effective than trying to kick the ball deep. I mean, that's worked out very well for him. That's getting to the 35-yard line at this point in the game is not bad into the win.
No, that's an excellent point. And, 450 with the way NFA moves their offense is certainly a lot of time for them to go down the field. But if you're New London, if you can get into the fourth quarter, down a score with the win for a quarter, that's got to feel pretty good. So the Wildcats will come out here with receivers on both sides and Preston in the backfield with Elijah Parker. The give will be to Preston. He bounces it outside and cuts inside of a nice block from his wide receiver and gains on about 7 or 8 yards on first down.
Good job on the left-hand side of the Norwich line.
And Pierre Lewis that time with a nice seal block on the outside.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He took the words literally out of my mouth. See? Oh.
There you go. Preston breaks a tackle, and he's hammered, and it's going to be right at the first down marker. He sidestepped Richard Henry, who had gotten into the backfield. And
it'll be enough for the first down. Again, big series here. Whalers would like a 3-and-out right about now, but
First and 10 NFA, and Parker will operate. Third time in a row, he gives the ball to Preston, who kind of seemed like he tripped as he got to the line of scrimmage, and he fell forward. Shane Brooks tripped him up for a gain of maybe half a yard. I'll give him maybe that much.
8 yard, yeah, that was about it. And interesting they chose to run with the wind at their back. This time he goes back to throw.
Pressured, Blue's out there all by himself. He catches it in stride, and he has a first down before he's knocked out of bounds. They sent Blue into motion to the right, and there was nobody out there with him. Manuel came up to make the stop, but that's an easy first down.
I'm not sure what happened there. The Whalers, I thought, were in zone, so they may have dropped back too quickly. Whoever had the right flat zone didn't stay home. There's the bubble screen again.
And Sproul had it, and I don't know if he dropped it and picked it up again. I think they're going to call it incomplete. Yeah, I think you're right. They were in zone, and that's normally when that guy goes in motion, that's a good way of knowing if you are in zone. And the fact that no one followed him was a good indicator that it was either zone or a really badly blown man coverage.
I thought it was zone coverage, but the corner on the left-hand side just simply took a deep drop and never recovered to pick up the motion man.
And it was 20 yards before he had anybody near him. Second down, handoff goes to Blue. Blue straight up the middle. Big run for Damian Blue, and he's up near the first down marker. Little change of pace with Blue, little that speed straight up the middle. JoJo Lucas on the tackle for the Whalers, but I believe it's going to be right up on the third down. So it'll be first down. Move the chains. Officials are going to wave this one off, and they're blowing their whistle. 3:09 remaining here in the third period. 13-7 NFA on top.
Timeout on the field. Timeout. New London.
Whalers trying to get organized here because they've just been blown off the ball for the last 4 plays.
Well, I think the Whalers are trying to get out of this quarter. 3:09 remaining. They're going to have to hold this drive. They're going to have to make a stop here if they want to get out of this quarter down a score. And with 3:09 remaining, like you said, that's a good timeout. They're going to talk it over again. NFA was in this exact same position not that long ago and stalled right about here.
Yeah.
New London went right down the field. And it seems like NFA has had a lot of success. I mean, they've had a success. It's almost like there's too many options right now. I mean, what hasn't worked? I mean, they're running the ball for 6-7 yards up the middle. They've got the screens are getting 4 or 5 yards a clip. They've had Pomeroy doing pretty much whatever he wants to do. Sometimes it feels like you gotta pick the right one.
Sometimes it feels like, how do they only have 13 points?
And it does. I mean, they've moved the ball fairly effortlessly. No turnovers, right? No interceptions or fumbles. It's just they've stalled a couple times. But they'll have it 1st and 10 at the 34-yard line.
Do the Whalers have a turnover? I don't think so.
No.
Right? This game has been turnover free.
Yeah, and relatively penalty free. It's been pretty clean.
Yeah.
Keeper by Parker. He slips a tackle, but not much there on the read option.
I think that Norwich has been much better when they just simply run downhill. When the options and on the counter they've been pretty good as too. But when they go downhill with Blue or with any of the other running backs, they've been very effective. The spread like that.
There's Preston straight up the gut, 1st down and more. Preston churning down inside the 15. Like you said there, Coach, running downhill, and that was all the way downhill. Sean Preston with a big gain.
Right now, that offensive line winning the battle.
NASCAR right up to the ball. NFA rushes up, and now Parker will turn to look to the sideline for the play. Sproul is out on his own with Manuel, single coverage on the far sideline. Parker hands it off to Preston, and Preston is hit pretty quickly and brought to the ground by Commander.
You know what I've noticed, though, is that even when they have an isolate out there they put a back in motion and there'll be a receiver one-on-one, he's mainly thrown to the side that has the multiple receivers. He rarely is thrown to the.
Parker's going to keep it himself, and he's going to get up close to the 1st down marker. I think he's going to have it. I think it's going to be 1st and goal for NFA.
Well, you talk about a key drive. This has been a key drive for the Wildcats.
And with 1:42 remaining, they're going to say he was just short. They're going to mark it. It's 3rd and inches. But what's interesting is that should keep the clock moving. And NFA is going to have a couple more plays before the clock will keep running now. The clock's down to 1:28. 13-7 Wildcats. Knocking on the door here. Parker. Preston bounces it outside, cuts back inside, dives for the end zone. Touchdown, Wildcats, Sean Preston.
Well, there's your answer. Whalers go on a terrific drive, score, bring the game to 13-7, and the Wildcats come right back with a 65-yard drive and just made it look easy the entire way.
Yeah, everything had gone the Whalers' way. The touchdown, the kick, leaving NFA at the 35-yard line. But you're absolutely right. That was too easy. There's never a threat of a stop that time. Wildcats downhill the whole way. Evans will come in and kick out of the Mulkentine hold. Snap is good hold, and the kick is up. And it is through the uprights, and that'll make it 20-7 NFA with 1:18 remaining here in the third quarter.
Starting center for Norwich is I feel embarrassed already. But have you seen a bad snap tonight?
No. That's a good point. Operating out of the shotgun.
Operating out of the shotgun, the spread offense, it's so important that the center be a reliable guy, and I haven't seen it even what remotely looked like a bad snap tonight.
No, that's another good point. And that's one of those subtle, rarely talked about aspects of things. When you're a rhythm offense the way that they are, and you're trying to run out of that shotgun, when you're trying to do bubble screens, you can't have the snap be a little behind, a little high, a little low. It throws all the entire timing of the offense off. And I think that's something that we'll mention. We'll effort the young man's name and give him the credit where the credit is due.
Because not only have they run downhill up the middle, which means he has to have had some serious impact on that, but you're running a spread offense with a center who gives you a perfect snap every time.
And it's cold, it's windy, and that's not easy. Over the course of a night, it's very hard. It's hard to do anything 100 times without messing up once.
And it's one of those things where if you don't do it 100 times perfectly, that's when you get noticed.
Absolutely. You notice the one. Find me another thing in sports that you can do 100 times perfectly, and that's not an easy thing to do. So Evans will kick off for NFA, and the Whalers will have 1:18 left into the wind. Evans bangs it high, spiral, comes down at the 14-yard line, and heading up the middle of the field for the Whalers is Manuel, and Manuel loses the ball. Ball's on the turf, and guess what? NFA has it. There's the turnover we were talking about. It hadn't happened yet. Looks like the Wildcats have the first one of the ball game. And they do. NFA ball at the 33-yard line with 1:08 remaining and the wind.
It's just, as we said, we talked to Johnny Burns. That they have, over the last 3 weeks, dug themselves holes time and time again. They managed to get out of that, early hole that they've done, but, just mistakes.
If the play at the end of the first half was a gut punch, that right there, if they score again, is the sort of the rib punch. It's the other side, because they had just, like you said, crept back into it. Momentum, maybe they'd sort of found a little something, and NFA has not given them the ball back. In motion, Blue. Parker's going to throw. Has all the time in the world. Deep ball, looking for Sproul, back of the end zone, just over his outstretched hands. He had Jaheim Sproul and just overthrew him.
I think actually less overthrew him than Sproul just sort of stopped his route, sort of waited for the ball a little bit, and not realizing that it's downwind, the ball just kept sailing. If he had continued through his route, he might have caught that one.
Now, what stood out for me is Parker had enough time to boil a cup of tea and still throw that pass.
Exactly.
2nd down and 10. And they're going to blow that one dead. Flags come on the field.
Chris Green, by the way, is the NFA center who we've been lauding, and should give a shout-out to him because he's been absolutely a standout tonight, both blocking and doing the most important thing a shotgun center can do.
The junior center, Chris Green, absolutely doing a great job, and he plays alongside some of the biggins. My man downtown Josh Brown is out there. I tell you look at the size of the NFA line. Now, we know some linemen. My brother-in-law, for example, the great Zach Reagan was a lineman. He ain't that big.
No.
Handoff straight up the middle. Preston, big play, and 1st down, Wildcats. And right now, they are pushing the Whalers around.
They have won the battle up front in the second half. They really after they answered the New London touchdown just by simply being more physical.
Parker wants to go, hitch and go, has Pomeroy off his outstretched fingertips, incomplete in the end zone. Nice coverage that time by the Whalers. Rondé Ford almost got his hands on it, but Pomeroy almost made a catch. By the way, it's becoming a verb. I don't know how I feel about it, but he almost Odell'd him that time. He almost OBJ'd him.
Oh, please.
That's become a verb,
Oh, please.
The kids do it on purpose.
Please.
Why catch it with 2 hands when I can do it with 1? You watch now. You watch any 2 kids having a catch on the sidelines, and their left hand will be in their pocket. All they want to do is try to, I'm going to Odell you, and that's a verb. I'm going to Odell you.
I say get rid of the gloves.
Well, listen, they're not going to do anything. I'm surprised they don't let them have catcher's mitts to play with. They're going to do anything that creates more offense. So they're actually going to have, they're actually going to put glue on them. 3rd down and 4 with under 40 seconds remaining. The Wildcats knocking on the door. Ball at the 17-yard line. They're already on top, 20-7 over the Whalers. In motion, Mulkentine. He gets the jet sweep. Mulkentine heads to the outside. Mulkentine breaks tackle, cuts it back towards the end zone, and the official's going to mark him down right at the 1 yard line. Nolan Mulkentine was sniffing pay dirt and came up just short.
But puts the Wildcats on the doorstep as just before they'll get a chance to score before the fourth quarter.
16 seconds, first and goal. Ball's on the turf, picked up by Parker. Ball's loose again. Whalers pick it up. It's going to be a turnover, and the Whalers are going to have it.
Ball carried by the quarterback Pucker, fumble on the play, and
There's a big turnaround from the 1 yard line, and it was really the first low snap I've seen this evening. I think I may have jinxed old Chris Green, unfortunately, because he's been impeccable up to this point.
there were flags on the play.
Officials talking now. What could?
There was a flag on the play, and it's a penalty against New London.
Yeah, substitute infraction.
That's a devastating penalty for the Whalers because they had recovered a fumble, they had held. That's a tough one. Half the distance to the goal, and it'll be first and goal from the 1.
That's just a giant mistake. The young man who came off the field on the side did not get to off the field in time, and
Goal at the 1.
Handoff, Preston dives for the end zone, waiting for the official signal,
nope, it's not in.
and he'll be short.
But that'll do it for 3 quarters.
And that'll be the end of the quarter. And now we have an update for you from Plainfield. Plainfield scores on a Lucian Doobie 55-yard run, but the extra point's no good. 7-6 Griswold with 11:44 remaining in the third period.
Go Panthers.
Panther Pride. Speaking of pride
Yeah.
and the Northeast, the Colchester Cougars, the B squad, has a big game this Sunday at Tolland High School as the great Gil Vargas comes in and like a 7-year-old kid comes in and messes around with them.
I'm never saying a nice thing about him again. That's the last nice thing I'm saying about him.
Glad to see he still has a playful side.
Yes.
So the Plainfield team is
Best coach I ever worked with.
Gil Vargas. Well, I think I've said about 100 different times on air how much he meant to me.
Yeah.
The biggest coaching influence in my life is sitting to my right now. But
that would be me.
that would be you.
Oh, yeah.
But man, was I lucky to have
Yeah, you
played
were,
for
you were.
and coached with him, and I didn't appreciate how much he did until I coached with him.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. It was nice for me to be able to turn my son over to somebody I could trust like that.
Preston
And the
just
Wildcats score.
walks into the end zone that time. Sean Preston with another touchdown, and that's going to
Well,
I think
the
put the icing on
Wildcats
this
have
one.
owned it from tackle to tackle in the second half. I mean, they really have, so especially since the Whalers scored. They just responded by dominating up front for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They played keep away. They just haven't. They've ripped off yard after yard.
And the Whalers just continue to make mistake after mistake.
The
They
substitution
have shot
was
themselves in the foot so many times tonight. After you get a huge turnover, to be penalized for a substitute infraction, that's just you can't have that happen.
Extra point is hooked left, and it'll be 26-7 NFA. That's a terrible penalty. Terrible penalty. So the Colchester Cougars B squad with
Yes.
your grandson,
My boy.
the two-way lineman, has to go to Tolland to play Tolland
I hope to make it there.
on Sunday.
Are there flights to Tolland from
It feels
New
like
London?
It feels like we get a hotel room. Now, in what can only be described, so it's very interesting. These games were scheduled for last week. You might remember we got some snow.
Yes, I do.
And the games were scheduled at Ellington and at Tolland. Well, we had it's hard to believe, but both sites had issues. In Ellington, somebody thought it would be a good idea to try to clear the remaining snow with a plow, forgetting that it's a natural grass field, and left what happens when you drive a truck onto a natural grass field? So that didn't work.
Ain't good.
And in Tolland, we found out that, well, they play at Tolland High School. That's the Board of Education. And the Friday day of school was postponed, and so the Board of Education couldn't clear the snow off in time. Long story short, we're playing Sunday in
Well, I'll tell you
Tolland.
something. The sixth grade football will never be the same. The rigors of playing and
Oh,
coaching.
I'll tell you, I've heard all about it from the junior voice. High kick bounces on the turf. That's loose. Picked up by the Whalers. And oh, bam, bam, Belton. The best name in high school football. Bam, bam, knocked them down for the Wildcats.
That is like adding an exclamation point to things. We got 11:51 to go, and the Whalers, to have any kind of chance, really have to get themselves together here. They look just a bit dispirited at this point.
If you're looking for an exclamation point, it usually comes from the NFA defensive player with the best name out there. Is there a better name than Bam Bam Belton? That's as good as it gets. Bam Bam Belton. Wales will have it first down. They'll send George in. He'll operate from the shotgun. With the win, hands off to Commander. Commander struggling to get yards in the center of the NFA defensive line. Nice job that time by the Wildcats. And my guy, downtown Josh Brown, on the tackle with a gain of 2.
I understand that his friends have taken to calling him downtown.
That's right. The power of the media.
I think he likes that.
The power of the media. George going to throw. Second down. Pressured. Rolls left. There's going to be a flag as the Whalers, I don't want to say anything. JoJo Lucas out there was stuck in a battle, but when the defensive player tries to turn and his jersey rips away because you're holding on to it, the official's going to throw a flag.
And he did. Bob Woods has the call, a holding call. We'll see. Actually, I wonder if they'll take this.
Do you want to bring up? Yeah, they'll take it because they're going to make them throw it. In high school football, the holding penalty is the biggest penalty you can get.
Yeah.
That's a big one, so they'll take that out there. And with 11:21 remaining, Wildcats on top 26-7. You're watching Game Day live on theday.com. It's Casey O'Neill along with Jim O'Neill and the NFA Wildcats with a 26-7 lead in the oldest high school football rivalry over the New London High School Whalers. We're staying abreast of the
and the Whalers take
Playfield
time out here to sort of reorganize themselves, but they're going to have a tough.
noticeable, and the body language of the Whalers is also noticeable. And I think right now the Whalers are happy, moving on towards whatever's next. I think at this point they're ready for this thing to. If we went running clock, I don't think the Whalers would have a real hard time with that right now.
Well, I thought the Whalers made first of all, first quarter and a half. Well, literally the first half. Played defensively about as well as they possibly could, and just gave up a gut punch touchdown at the end of the first half. Those are hard to recover from, but they did. Mm-hmm. Came back in the third quarter, made a couple of key stops, and then marched the length of the field, scored, and looked like they had recaptured the momentum. Not so, said the Wildcats, and they just went down the field twice.
Well, NFA
Got the
has
big
not
turnover again and went in
because of the Whaler penalty. NFA hasn't made a mistake. New London's made all the mistakes, whether it's letting a drive get sustained, killing a drive, the late touchdown at the end of the half, or the turnover that wasn't. Here's a toss to Burgess. Burgess is going to throw it down the field looking for Prats, and well defended out there. Prats, no chance. The defense was by Naziah Paul, and Paul was step for step.
Those kind of plays, don't have much of a surprise element to them when you're ahead 26-7 and all you're doing is defending the deep ball more than anything else. That's a nice play if the score is 7-6 and they've been running the football, but because it looks like the reverse. But a one receiver route into what really was a well covered play, not fooling anyone.
Plus, if you want to run reverse on 2nd and 24, go ahead. You can run a reverse again, 2nd and 24. That's fine. George one-on-one has Burgess, and just to the inside, Oregon. Pass interference is going to get called again right on Naziah Paul. He had the inside position on Burgess and made contact. That'll get a first down for the Whalers.
I'm glad we don't have replay there because I thought just did an absolutely great job in defending there.
Yeah, Paul had the inside.
Yeah.
I don't think that he did anything wrong. The contact that time, I think, came from Burgess trying to get to the football, but Paul's entitled to that spot. So. But either way, it'll be a first down, which is ironic because it was 3rd and 24. That's the worst possible penalty if you're NFA. It gives the Whalers a fresh set of downs. Oh, that's actually not an automatic first down. It's a 15-yard penalty. It's going to bring up 3rd and 9. I'm going NFL style. George, pressured, rolls, and he's going to be sacked. Sacked on the play, Adelino De Vega.
Adelino.
The lineman for the Wildcats sacks George, and it's going to bring up 4th and long. Now, how about that one? When is a pass interference penalty not a first down?
That's one of the rare times, that's for sure.
When it's 3rd and 24, and you only get
24,
15
yeah.
yards. That's not the case in anywhere else. It's only in high school football. That's not an automatic first down.
You know, just an observation. Would you say the NFA passing game is more sophisticated than the Whalers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the Whalers have a quarterback who can throw it, but they run a lot of basic out routes and up routes and seam routes. NFA is running the drags and the crosses and sending the backs out into the backfield and out into the patterns. 10:31 remaining. The Whalers will have it 4th down, and we have a penalty against NFA.
Back to receive his punt, number 4, Kevin Conroy.
Did they just call a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty?
They moved it all the way up. It's now 4th and 1, and it looks like they did because they're gonna.
Well, I got to talk to Bob about his signaling this.
Flag was thrown on the play. Unsportsmanlike.
It was an
Yeah, it was
unsportsmanlike
unsportsmanlike
penalty against NFA, and Jason Bakulis wants a timeout, which I think is a really good timeout off of sort of the chaos that's going on in the field right now.
Unsportsmanlike's a 10-yard penalty in high school?
I
I have to go back to I only officiated
yes,
for 30 years,
yes.
but they must have changed that one because that's new to me.
So someone on the hotline makes a really good point.
Yes.
Right now, just this for the second,
Yes.
Packers Chiefs.
Yeah. That is a good point. That's exactly what it looks like.
Right now, it looks like Packers Chiefs. That's a good point. Who made that point? Happy Voice out there and said that's a good one. It does look.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
the Whalers certainly, echo the Packers. Right now from this distance, the Wildcats look like some of those Chiefs uniforms that we see.
I will tell you this. The Whaler uniform has changed less than any other uniform in Eastern Connecticut over the years.
Well, why should you? It's one of the most iconic uniforms I can think of, both the Packers and the Whalers.
Yeah.
The Whalers will come up. They have 4th and a yard. How about they've got an unsportsmanlike and a pass interference and still don't have a first down?
Now, I got to find out that one. I might be behind the times.
Handoff, Commander straight up the middle. He'll have the first down. All right, so it's rare at this point in my life that I say I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I've never seen a drive where in the same set of downs
Yeah.
there has been a 15-yard pass interference penalty
Yeah.
and a 10-yard unsportsmanlike penalty, neither of which resulted in a first down. They had 25 yards of penalties within 4 downs and you get it first.
I have to go back and check my high school rules because I haven't done it officiating in years, but I thought either or both of those were automatic first downs. I guess I'm wrong.
26-7 NFA with 10 minutes remaining. Whalers now driving with the ball at the 38-yard
Must score
line.
and must score quickly, Case.
George is going to throw. Pressured. Steps up. Throws to the sidelines. Hits Commander, and he's banged. Incomplete. Xavier Marquez put the licking out on Jalen Commander.
Had a good chance to hit T.J. Manuel, who was all alone down the middle, but I don't think Owen saw him.
No, I think the pressure forced him to go to his check down, which was Commander, and Marquez put an end to that one. So we're under 10 minutes here now remaining, and it'll be Whalers with a second down and 10. NFA pretty much, I don't want to say it has dominated the game, but has certainly played, would you call it an efficient game by NFA?
Well, I would actually say they've dominated the game because it's really seemed it was surprising when New London scored and you realize it's only 13-7. It's a close game, but because it seemed like NFA either had the ball all the time or was making one good play after another.
Jet sweep. Josiah Williams. And nothing there. Bam Bam Belton in on the stop for the Wildcats. I feel like NFA has just played a very clean game.
Oh, they have.
You haven't seen, like I said, one bad snap, no turnovers to speak of. Very few bad decisions by Parker. Very few bad throws by Parker.
Yeah, I would agree. And when you can say that about a high school football team, that's pretty good. That's a pretty well coached team. Now you've got to give Jason Bakulis a lot of credit there because a team that doesn't make mistakes doesn't do it just simply because they got good athletes.
George to throw, 3rd and long, pressured. Deep down the sideline, one-on-one coverage. Hits Burgess, and Burgess brings it down at the 25-yard line. Beautiful throw. Owen George on the money to Zeke Burgess.
Burgess showing the kind of athlete that we have heard so much about. You know, that's a pro throw and catch right there.
And it'll be a first down Whalers, and that ball will be at the 25-yard line. So the Whalers will move the chain. And
well, as we said, they must score and score fairly quickly.
Clock
Just
is
under
running.
9 minutes now.
George to throw. Plenty of time. Rolls. Throws. Sideline. Hits Commander. That's Jalen Commander inside the 20 to the 18. And the Whalers will hurry up to the football. Not nearly quickly enough, however.
I was going to say, sort of hurry to the football.
This is what constitutes hurrying. Then the Whalers need to work on the hurry up.
This is the Donovan McNabb hurry up offense.
Second down. Low snap. George handles it. Throws, and he throws it right into the NFA defender. Intercepted. Armando Rivera. And Rivera crosses midfield for the Wildcats. Owen George never saw him, and it threw a perfect pass right into Rivera's arms.
That might be the exclamation point.
Armando Rivera, a little talked about senior for the NFA Wildcats in his last game as a Wildcat with a big interception, and thus the jubilant sidelines over there. The Wildcats thrilled at the senior with the interception. Look at him mob their teammate. So happy here in his final game.
That's why you play, when you play a good zone defense, that's exactly what happens. A guy gets into the position exactly where he's supposed to be, and sometimes a quarterback who hasn't seen him before doesn't pay attention, doesn't see him then, and that's exactly when you get that kind of interception. Rivera just simply dropped into his zone, stood there, stayed there, and sat on the throw.
Parker's going to throw on first down. Pressured. Hits Sproul. Sproul jukes, beats JoJo Lucas the inside. Sproul to the outside. It's a foot race, and no one is catching Jaheim Sproul. Touchdown, Wildcats.
I'm afraid the route is on. Just bad tackling. That play was well covered. There was no reason for that to go for a touchdown. But give credit to Sproul who broke a tackle or two and outraced everybody to the end zone.
He sidestepped JoJo Lucas, and then you weren't going to catch him. Jaheim Sproul's got speed to burn, and he burned the Whalers that time. And all of a sudden, it's 32-7. NFA putting a licking on the Whalers here at Canamela Field. Extra point is up, and it is high, and it is true, and it is 33-7 with 8 minutes remaining in the ball game.
Does it? My imagination, or was it just 13-7 not long ago?
It sure felt like it. It was, not that long ago that the Whalers came down. First of all, it was not that long ago that it was 7-0.
Yeah.
And, then it became 13-0 at the end of the half, and then you're right. That drive for the Whalers feels like games ago.
Yeah.
Different time altogether.
A lot has happened since the Whalers. It's like there was a slap in the face to the Wildcats because they responded exactly like that, like they had been insulted, and really have just put on a dominating performance. And of course, throw in a couple of ill-timed mistakes by the Whalers, a turnover, a poor penalty on a substitution infraction. That's just the kind of stuff that gets you. You're not going to beat. Certainly not going to be good teams, and the Wildcats are a good football team. Let's not forget that. This is a good football team here.
They are. Their only losses. Take the Killingly game out for a second. Although let's not. They lost to Killingly, who is the defending Class M state champion,
that's right,
and is going back to the postseason
That's
again
right,
this year.
So you're right. Exactly.
So they lost to them, and they lost to no one else that wasn't in the top 10 in the state.
Yeah.
Everyone that beat them was in the top 10 of the state at the time. This ball lands on the turf, and it's loose and covered up by the Whalers. Smartly done by Shane Brooks, because that was one of those. That was like a pitching wedge right to the middle of the green, and the Whalers all looked at it. Said, who's going to cover it?
I think we're waiting for somebody to putt it. Well, now it's a matter of maintaining self-respect. They need to, not get too down, so that they need to perform here a little bit. This is their last some of these kids, their last high school football game, you want to go out with at least some kind of positive memory of what you did, and here's a chance to do that. 33-7, going to be difficult to overcome, but what you want to do now is at least play to the final whistle.
Yeah, so there's for a lot of the Whalers and the Wildcats, and before the end of this thing, it is tradition here on game day to read the names of all the seniors. There's Commander with a big hole and a big run up the middle for a first down. He'll cross the 40-yard line. Speaking of seniors, there's one, Jacob Commander, who will be sorely missed here in Whalerville, but he is
I
off
think
to bigger
he
things.
has. He's what we call a mentionable. In that, when you start talking 10 years from now and you start mentioning guys who stood out and played, Jacob Commander's name will come up.
He will. And, you get elevated when you win state championships. You get elevated for individual performances. Commander's one of those guys who has just played well for 3-4 years here at New London. His brother, Jalen Commander, there's a fumble, scooped up, heading down the sidelines. The Wildcats have it. That's Naziah Paul. And the Whalers right now are coming apart at the seams.
I was going to ask you something. I thought the most sustained kind of offense the Whalers had tonight was at the beginning of the game, when they ran out of, what was essentially a single wing, offense with Commander taking direct snap and picking a hole. They seemed to be fairly effective out of that, and when they got away from it, they weren't as effective. That there's always second guessing from everybody, but I wonder if they might have been better off sticking with that kind of thing and trying to control the game a little bit more.
I thought they did a nice job when they first went to George, and they were into the wind, and they had the short, and they went short passing game.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Certainly mixing it up would be something that I'm sure, if I were to ask Johnny Burns, he would probably say, maybe we could have gone. You're right. Maybe trying to keep this a little closer to the vest. So 1st and 10 Wildcats. They'll have it at the 42-yard line. 7 minutes and 18 seconds remaining here. The Wildcats are on their way to a 6-4 season, and the Whalers will finish at 500. Parker, lots of time. Has Pomeroy, hits him at the 10. Pomeroy stays on his feet. Touchdown, Wildcats. Kevin Pomeroy, the senior for the Wildcats, caught it and beat his man. Touchdown.
Well, I think that qualifies under the no mercy rule.
If the touchdown at the end of the first half was a gut punch, that was a throat punch.
Do we have a flag here?
We do have a flag, but I believe it's also after the fact, and this is where you start getting some disgruntled people down on the field. As 39-7. You were saying something about, wasn't it 13-7 a minute ago?
Wow.
Yeah, 39-7, just like that. It's a good time to mention that game day, as we head to the end of the fall season, game day will hopefully be able to bring you some postseason action of Killingly and or Plainfield. As we move into the winter, stay tuned for our big basketball preview. We have a lot of fun things coming up this year on game day in terms of high school basketball. Of course, East Lyme and Dev Ostrowski, the highlight of the ECC as it moves into what we might call life without Mikey. The ECC this year, well, for the first time in a few years, will not have the dynamic Mikey Pacetto, and Dev Ostrowski takes the mantle as the next great player in the ECC. And, of course, we will have that. Girls basketball, the defending champion New London High School Whalers, will be on display as they oft are. And in addition to both of those, we will bring you the ECC Wrestling Championships this year. We will bring you the ECC Cheerleading Championships this year. And if you can find us another winter sport we haven't covered.
Fencing. Are you going to do the fencing championship?
We will be doing a fencing game day challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas the sports doctor will also don it. And I will look at the sports doctor. And I will say, hello. My name is Inigo Montoya.
Oh, God.
You killed my father. Prepare to die. And we will go at it. And, yes, that's on the tab. We're going to do both I think the wrestling championship should be a lot of fun. And I quiz people all the time. I say, we got, 50,000 hits on the basketball game the East Lyme Waterford championship game, that big Mikey Dev showdown.
Yeah.
I said, if you can name me, this is people that don't know any better. I said, if you can name for me the sport that got 3 times that hit amount.
Cheerleading.
And they go, no, and they go, no, cheerleading. Not even close. I've never seen anything like it, and we're looking forward to being back at Waterford High School this year to do the cheerleading championships.
Was happy to be one of the first. When I was AD at Waterford, we hosted the cheerleading championships for the first time there. And won a state championship while I was at Waterford, the first state championship in cheerleading.
Now, you have always been a great proponent for girls' sports.
I have, yes.
And I'd like to think of myself as a fairly enlightened thinker. And
Fairly enlightened.
I'm certainly no misogynist.
Yep, no.
But I admit, I was a typical male athlete who sort of, maybe I didn't poo-poo, but I certainly guffawed at the notion of cheerleading until I watched it and went, holy cow.
Yeah, it's and the work that they put in is just I mean, the idea of cheerleaders who were here simply to support the football teams has gone the way of the
So take your best athlete,
the dodo.
take your best athlete and watch and take your best gymnast, take your best dancer, take your best high flyer, and now take 20 of them and make them all do it in exact synchronicity. It was unbelievable.
It's an incredible thing.
It really is.
True athletes, and by the way, a dangerous sport.
It is the highest rate of concussions of any of the sports. But I've never heard one person say get rid of cheerleading.
People are going to try to roll back some of the activities.
The tumbling, the high flying tumbling is definitely, and some of the moves they had. Certainly, cheerleading is a. But I mean, if anyone thinks cheerleading is not a contact sport, go watch it.
Now let me ask you a question. Now you've done some game day challenges that have become famous. You're an established lacrosse goalie.
Yes.
And you proved that you can't hit a baseball or a softball, as Carolyn Tabor, showed you. I really think 2 things that I'd like to see. One, I'd like to see a game day challenge in wrestling, because if anyone looks like a wrestler, I mean, you do. Ooh, Jacob Commander with a number of nifty moves. Jacob Commander says, I'm going to go out in style, though. Have you thought about that?
I took your cue. We are going to do, in the week leading up to the ECC championships, we are going to do an instructional video where we are going to have our wrestling expert, and I'm not going to name him yet until he confirms, but our wrestling expert and perhaps 1 or 2 of the wrestlers show the sports doctor, show me, what sort of an instructional video for the layperson on what they're going to be watching in the ECC wrestling championships. And for those of you that know me, me in a singlet, I'm not making fun of the sport, but I am going to wear the recognized equipment of wrestling, and I think hilarity will ensue.
You have to you're going to sew 2 of them together. That's 2 for the price of 1 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it's. By the way, there is a sport you have not covered, and you should, because the passion in that sport runs as high as any sport in the ECC.
And what is that?
Swimming. You got to go to an ECC swim meet if you want to see people who really care about their sport.
So we've talked about it, and I have no idea what I just saw. It's a turnover for the Whalers, and the Wildcats have recovered, and I'm not even going to comment on it because I don't know what
I don't think that was a turn. I think he threw. I don't think he fumbled. I think he threw it forward.
No, he did, and I don't know why or to who, but
so why is that a fumble?
I think the kid caught it. I think the NFA kid intercepted it, but they're talking about it. We talked about doing swimming. Some of the challenges are the audio inside the facility, the pool area is very, very bad. It's also one of those sports like indoor track where there's so many moving parts that sometimes it's a challenge to cover it. But we've talked about that.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm so happy to be here tonight just because I get a chance to be with my son tonight. I'm at the oldest football game, but I hate to say this. I don't hate to say it. I like saying it. The day.com is like light years into the future about what coverage of sports is going to be. I know Peter Whoppy has a great deal to do with it, but you're to be congratulated, as is to your sidekick, I refuse to call him the sports doctor, Keith O'Brien. You guys have established just a complete, the day, with Carlos and all the people who have supported you, behind the scenes. This is something that I'm surprised. You're leaders the national leaders in this. You got people watching this in on the beach in L.A. I mean, you got people watching this in England, and
We're very fortunate. I mean, the gentleman sitting to my left, Carlos, Tim, who's out there freezing in the bitter cold right now, and over at
Tim looks like a terrorist right now.
of course, the great Peter Wappy,
Yep.
and we have a great crew, and we if people realize that what the biggest compliment is that we consistently get asked why we haven't covered something,
Yeah,
which is a
because
great.
everybody wants you to.
Everyone wants us to.
Yeah.
From the former Louis Martinez, who we mentioned before, wanted to know why we didn't cover the youth football championships.
Boy.
Lots of time. They're throwing it into the wind. It's going to fall. And intercepted by Zakai Burgess. Zeke Burgess intercepts it at the 35-yard line as the Wildcats were putting it in the air with a 40-7 lead. And we're going to continue on with what we were talking about. You want to know why didn't we cover the Super Bowls of the youth football, like the midgets and the micro midgets? And people always want to know, why aren't you at this game? Why aren't you at that game? And that's a huge compliment. But if you realize the shoestring that we do this thing on, you'd realize that we try to do every event we can.
Carlos lives in a tent by Ocean Beach.
It's not a bad place to be. By the way, speaking of Ocean Beach, you mentioned the game day challenges. You didn't mention the hardest one. If I was forced to row a crew, I'd be still rowing in a circle in the middle of the harbor right now. That's the sport that I was really not good at. For a guy as athletic as I am, and yes, Jason Appleby, I am a great athlete despite your messages.
You're the J.J. Koning of your.
That's right. Ooh, Commander. Now there's the will right there. That Jacob Commander.
Right, yeah. It's 40-7. Has every reason in the world if he wants to simply pack it in, but not Jason Commander's. Not in his DNA.
Now he had a horse collar that he shrugged off, a hit that he shrugged off, and he still rolled forward. It'll be second down. So, for Zeke Burgess and Richard Henry and Jerry Marcus, for Nizelle Hodges and TJ Manuel, Shane Brooks and Joe Ellis, John Mondesir, for Jacob Commander, the great Jacob Commander, as his younger brother Jalen Commander bounces outside, for Elijah Good, Demond Hastings, Frederick Jean, actually, and seniors John Anger, Messiah Swift, and Salah. These are the kids that are done. This is their last ever game here at Canamella Field. Their last game for New London High School. Congratulations, gentlemen.
You know what? By the way, people don't consider too. When a kid comes off the field as a senior, ending his football career, it's the last football game he's ever going to play for the most part.
For most of them.
For 99% of them.
Yes.
It's the last time they'll ever put on pads and play a football game.
That's right.
It's not a sport you continue into. Aren't many tackle football leagues.
I still play baseball.
Yeah.
That's not an option for these guys at this. You're right. You're right. And update 7-6 Griswold still 9:50 left in the fourth period. Plainfield needs to make something happen. Whalers have it on second down, straight snap to Commander, and he puts his head down. That's a great point. For all these kids, it is their last football game for most of them. Sure, Jacob Commander might play college football. Zeke Burgess might play college football. Some of them might play college football. But
right.
For 99% of the roster, you don't move on and play after this.
No. I remember Troy McKelvin, my dear, oh my God, I love Troy. Coming here on his last practice, and as he walked off the field alone in his last practice, the sun was setting, and he really got reflective. He realized after the next day he was never going to play that sport again. It's quite a realization.
Commander overshoots Prats. It is, and that was one of the things that Coach Bakula said the biggest impact for these kids was when they moved the game yesterday. They all thought today was going to be their last day of practice. They had mentally prepared to say goodbye today. And suddenly they were told, no, we're done. This is it. So for NFA, Elijah Parker and Kevin Pomeroy and Becker Bordeaux and Dievans Barbeau and Jaheim Sproul. For Rye Wallen-Chevitz, Yori Alisi, Neville Taudine, Armando Rivera, Shane Evans, Joe Desser, Adelino De Vega, Jonathan Pierre, Gabe Velez. As Commander will get a first down and lower his head on fourth down. for Michael Elder, Jared Garonsky, and Big Bam Bam Belton. Those are the seniors for NFA, and this is their last game as well. And you can see Jacob Commander. That's why he's still sending it in right now.
I'm telling you right now, it's that you see character checks all the time in sports. Sports doesn't develop character; it reveals it sometimes. And you take a kid like Jacob Commander, he's just not 40-7, 100-7, doesn't matter. That's what a true champion does.
This time, Commander gives it to Jalen Commander, and Jalen Commander will get a yard. I mean, you're right. This is it, though. This is it for a lot of these kids, and I hope I said all of your names correctly going down the rosters for both NFA and New London. And having watched, and I mean this sincerely, having watched the effort and the amount of work that goes into my 11-year-old son's football to see what
my boy,
to know what the effort is, even at that age. These kids have worked ridiculously hard, and to say goodbye as a senior is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
13-6 Griswold, passing touchdown. 8:51 left in the fourth. The Griswold Wolverines are a little bit closer as Jalen Commander tries to stay on his feet, and he's wrestled to the ground by Armando Rivera. So Griswold now ups the lead, 13-7. Here comes the interesting part. You're playing field. You score. It's 13-12. I think you got to go for two. I don't think a tie gets you in.
Well, a tie gets you overtime.
A tie gets you overtime. But, do you want to go to overtime? You've been down the whole game. Or do you go for it? It's a great conversation. Is the extra point a gimme tonight?
Well, that's good. You've asked a question that has a lot of variables. How's your kicking game, all that kind of stuff. But basically, you can be heroic and go for the win if you want to. Hey, I was heroic.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
By the way, how many coaches have tried that in the NFL this year and it failed?
Oh, there's a lot in the NFL this year that says you're going to go for it on every fourth down. You're going to go for two all the time,
guess
too.
What? We have 3 coaches go for it to win games, and they've all lost.
Well, one of them was your Belichick disciple, too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I was surprised. Move the chains, and the Whalers will...
40 seconds from the end of the oldest high school football game in the country. And I wish it could say it has lived up to expectations. It did for a while, but Norwich just reasserted its dominance in the second half and just simply, I think, overpowered the Whalers.
So now I get to now make the biggest oops ever and the biggest apology ever.
Yeah.
Because number 17 for New London is Jalen Callender. He's not Jalen Commander.
Oh, my word.
And Jalen Callender has been mentioned over and over, and I've mentioned him, and I've called him Jalen Commander, and I've called him Jacob's younger brother, neither of which is true. And the problem with doing things on video in the world of the internet is that I get called on it, and I should, and I apologize, Jalen Callender. Jalen Callender is a sophomore, and I should know that because I've done 2 other New London games. And Jalen Callender has left his heart on the field tonight, along with Jacob Commander. So my apologies to the Callender family and to you specifically, Jalen. We have 11 seconds remaining in the game. It's a 40-7 NFA blowout, and the Whalers are trying to wrap up one final play.
I got to tell you the truth. Very classy of you, son. That's takes a man to do that, and I'm sure the Callender family, which is by the way, a just terrific local fan, will forgive you because they know your heart is in the right place.
Well, in 1990, I came home from college and to a New London High School basketball game where the great Matt Rollins and Petey Gittins were headlining, and you and Mike McLaughlin were not in the gym for various reasons that we don't need to talk about. And I sat in and started the game off for you so that you guys could get back and do your game. It's how I got introduced into broadcasting.
It's one of the great stories, which we'll tell some other time. But
for 30 years, the number one thing you have told me is get their names right.
Yep.
Because it matters.
Yeah, it does.
Deep over the middle, Commander, and it's incomplete with 5.5 seconds remaining. And over the course of the years, I have taken my pride in doing that. And last year at NFA, I pronounced a kid's name McClellan, and the woman in front of me goes, "It's actually McAlendon." And I said, I said, the coach said it's McClellan, and she goes, "Well, I'm his mom." Then I said, "Oh, okay. Because I should also know, why am I asking coaches to pronounce these names?" And of course, the great Luke Letelier, who is actually Luke Letelier, sadly, in mine. But I want to get him right. So Jalen Commander, you're not. Jalen Callender, you are. And speaking of the calendar, it is come to an end for the Whalers and the Wildcats. The calendar will now turn to basketball season and the winter sports of swimming and others, as the Wildcats 40 and the Whalers 7.
Interesting game in many ways. As I said, we had talked to Johnny Burns last night. He really wanted to get off to a good start. I thought they did. The Whalers held the Wildcats to 7 points through the first 23 minutes and 57 seconds of the first half, and then just got suckered in on a trick play. And then the second half was just replete with mistakes. They made a nice drive to cut it to 13-7, but Norwich just simply dominated the ball game after that.
Well, it's the end of a long season for both teams. The Wildcats will finish 6-4. The Whalers will finish 5-5. And for us here at Game Day, we will move on to the next set of athletic endeavors. We will effort for you. Well, we will hope that the game over there with the sports doctor and Mike DeMauro will be as.
When did you turn that noun into a verb, by the way?
What's that?
Effort.
Efforting?
Yeah,
Efforting? I was efforting?
Yeah.
Is that,
We will effort.
we will effort? I was
thought
efforting.
Thought that was a noun. Apparently not.
So that's the end for us, and I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure was entirely mine. Loved it.
And so the Wildcats will head off 6-4. The Whalers 5-5. I want to thank Jim O'Neill for joining me tonight. I want to thank Carlos and Tim for all their work. Tim, hope you can get inside and get warm now, and we'll take it out of here. Your final score for the final time: the NFA Wildcats 40, the Whalers 7. For Game Day and all the crew, good night, everybody.